Hi, my name's Kay and this is my production log for my FMP project. The FMP that I'm completing is on the NHS, where I'll basically be creating a documentary around 45 minutes in length explaining the physical and mental challenges that healthcare workers face on a daily basis and the secret life behind the people working on our front line that people really need to take more of an insight from. I think this is a really useful project, especially with the times we're in at the minute where the NHS is under a lot of pressure. I feel like a lot of people aren't being really respectful to the people that are going above and beyond trying and keep a nation safe. So I just think that this will be insightful to a lot of people and will encourage a much better attitude to the people that are trying to keep everyone safe. So this production log I will be completing every time I complete a new piece of work, or at the end of each day after I have completed some pieces of work towards my production, my pre-production planning, and then my actual production, which will lead me all the way up until the end of this year and unit. I will basically just do this as an introduction, just to explain the things that I'll be trying to do with these production logs, and just to get used to speaking in front of a camera as well, because it is quite strange looking at myself speaking. So this production log I am doing in video format just because last year I realised that I really struggled with my production logs. It was almost a burden on me, having to spend a day writing and doing tasks to then end the day doing a big blog writing about everything that I did. So I feel like this is also a break for the examiners from reading for a little bit and just to listen. I feel like it'll give me a better opportunity to explain what I've been up to, and it'll also motivate me to actually complete these production logs because I won't have to write as much, and that's a big bonus for me with the amount of work that I've got going on at the minute. So the things that I'll be covering in these production logs over the next few weeks is firstly explain what tasks I've carried out that day, all the different things that I've done for my pre-production and production. It could be anything like completing a document, filling in a document, arranging interviews, carrying out interviews, or any sort of production. And after that I will be explaining things that went well during the daily tasks that I've completed, all the things that need reflecting upon, and just mentioning this is what I did, this is how it went, and this is how I can improve on it is going to be the structure to what I'm doing. I'm going to be highlighting any issues that I faced during the day, anything that didn't go as well as what I anticipated it to do, and I'm just going to be reflecting on this, seeing if I've had a contingency plan and if I've used these contingency plans to stop any issues from happening. That's something that I'll be making over the next week anyway, so maybe that'll come more into play in the production stages of things, but just addressing any issues that did happen, how I actually faced the issues by myself or using peer support, teacher support, and then how I'm going to stop any problems like that from happening in the future. It might not be so much the problem, just something that I didn't quite get done that I wanted to get done, so I'll just be then saying what I want to get done next time. Anything that I didn't finish, I'm going to do that the next day, saying if I can't physically do it, if there's a reason why I didn't complete that piece of work. And then I will be talking about what I'm going to do next, whether it's the following day, the following lesson, and just revisit the aims that I've got, my objectives for that production day. So that's the real structure, mainly just everything that I've carried out, the positives and the negatives to that task. Additional information, I'll also be reflecting on any teacher feedback or marking that I've had during the day, and revisiting that feedback later on and saying whether I've achieved that feedback over the next few days. This is going to be presented in a way where I'm just going to put all the clips into one big video. I'll upload it to YouTube and I'll timestamp every day and time where I've completed it, and so I can keep them all organised. I'll just keep them in I'm just filming it on my phone, so I'll just keep it in a little folder so they're all together, and then I'll put them one after the other into the video and publish that to YouTube, so our examiners have got access to filming that, seeing that content. And Each video should be about 5 to 10 minutes long, I've decided upon, just to make sure that I get all the detail in there that I do need to get in. And I figure this is probably the amount of time that's best spent actually reading a blog or a post, so it's sort of a good measure to think, oh, how long will I spend reading it? That's how long I'll spend watching the video on it as well. 5 minutes for shorter days, things where I've not done as much, but say I go out and I do a lot of filming, I do a lot of things covered in one day, it'll be a lot longer, just so every tasks get a fair amount of time, analysing everything individually. I'm not going to throw it all in at once because then I don't think anything will be properly reflected upon like it should be. It's definitely a big aim for me with this project this year, is carrying out production logs to the standard that they should be carried out, because last year I didn't complete as many production logs as what I should have done, and they weren't a good standard, and I really do feel like that was because I tried to approach them in a written way, which just wasn't a time effective solution. It's the end of a busy day, you know, you want to be winding down and not thinking about doing more writing. So big aim for me is these production logs, and I'll create a production log right at the end just to round up all the production logs I've done and actually to evaluate the production logs I've done as well, because I think that's a nice way to tie everything together. So this is my introduction to it all, and over the next few days I'm going to be creating my pre-production, and yeah, I'm going to get straight into it. So my task for my first day of production is I have just completed my researching for my location scouting. I've done lots of content on the different locations that I want to visit, so I think it's only fitting that the first stage of pre-production that I actually complete is my location scouting, which I aim to do tomorrow while I'm in college, and get all those done. I've got 5 locations planned out in my location scouting, and I will have to make an official document for all of those that highlights any risks that might be a potential threat while I'm on the site. Things like the address, the contacts to the address, pictures of the map, and just all the information that you need to know, just be prepared for while going on the location, just to make sure that any risks are minimalised when I go, and I can have these documents at hand just to keep me safe while I'm on the location, or anyone that I go with. And also just yeah, just to make sure that I know everything about the location that I possibly can. My extent of the site and where I'm actually going is as developed as what it can be, and that will help me to get better filming if I am filming on that day, because a lot of these locations is things where I'll be able to film. If I have a better idea of where I'm going, then I'll be able to find ideal spots to film and get better footage out of that, which is why these documents are really important. So those are my aims for tomorrow, is to complete those documents to a good standard, make sure there's as much information in there as possible using the research that I've just completed on my location scouting. And then I'll be following this up to when I've completed these documents tomorrow, just to see how everything went and to see whether or not I've completed all these and met these aims. So until tomorrow, this is my production log introduction, and we're going. See you tomorrow. Hi, this is my first production log video where I've completed actual pre-production, and today I've been in college and I have completed my location recce documents. Yesterday I created a introduction to these production logs where I basically said what we're going to be doing in them, and the target I set for myself yesterday was to complete all of the location recce documents that I had planned out as part of my location scouting research, and I was luckily successful on this. I did have to complete, well, 1.5 documents when I came home from college, as well as what I did in college as well, but I have the 5 documents now completed. Now these location scouting documents are from just on a Word document from the UAL sort of template that I have filled in with the information for all of these different locations. The location document includes features such as a production title, the writer's, director, producer and filming dates, photos of the location and the map location, the address, the address contact information just in case anything needs to get in touch with them, and then health and safety information and why I've chosen location sort of things and what I will be doing there. All these sections have been filled out for all 5 locations. These locations are Barnsley Hospital, Northern General Hospital in Sheffield, Asheville Medical Practice, and then finally Firth and Longley Park, which are 2 locations in Sheffield that I have chosen to do some filming on. So what went well? Well, getting all of them done, definitely a big bonus. Getting all 5 of these documents done today has taken a big weight off the production because there was quite a lot to do, quite a lot of content to cover with these. The main difficult sections were the health and safety concerns and why it was a suitable location, because that required quite a lot of research to go into them and for me to explain my choices to why I've picked these different locations and why the health and safety concerns are there. So it was quite a bit of writing for each one. Luckily quite a lot of the knowledge were transferable between documents, and so the basic points as to what the health and safety concerns were slightly different. But of course I've got 2 hospitals, 1 doctor's office which is quite similar to a hospital, and then 2 parks. So the 2 parks and the 2 hospitals, each of those had a different set of health and safety concerns, but they could be used with each other because they were the same risks. It's the same sort of setting and you would expect the same hazards within a hospital setting no matter what hospital it is that you go into. And same with the parks, the hazards in the parks, a park is a park really. And even though the locations and the scenery will be different, the things will be the same, the actual hazards within them, because they are essentially the same location. So things were just tweaked between them, and so the differences were with the park, I had some concerns such as animals, wildlife, such as like dogs approaching you or any sort of, maybe a bird might come and attack you, which is a bit bizarre, but animals are a concern outside, whereas inside a hospital the biggest concerns would be things like moving equipment, transporting patients. There's a lot more of a COVID risk within a hospital with all the sick people that are going there and people that are exposed to diseases and stuff that I'll be mixing with. So each of these had a contingency plan, and so for example with the COVID risks from the hospitals, these can be minimalised by washing your hands, sanitising regularly, wearing masks, general COVID precautions that government announced anyway, but just writing all those down to make sure that they're all down there so I know what I'm doing for each, what concerns are and how I could go about doing them. This will be quite nice because I'll be able to use this as part of my risk assessment as well as the risk assessments that I'll be completing in later pre-production stages will have a similar sort of concept to them. I think what went well was I tried to go above and beyond with the health and safety concerns. I only needed a few, but I did 6 for each location so that I had quite a few different points that I could explore, and I did quite a chunky bit of writing for suitable locations. So I've got this location recce document just up here, which I can just describe to you what I've been writing about and why the location's suitable, what content that I've covered. So I've written about the doctor's office, I've written about what locations it covers, in what patients will be attending the surgery and who we should expect to be in that location, and reasoning why I've picked it, because it's a smaller setting and it might be easy for me to get access to do filming rather than in a big hospital where there's obviously a lot more risk. So if I do need a backup, then it's a good place to get some minimal footage with chances of getting planning permission is greatly increased with a setting like this, which I've included in this writing, and some of the research that I've done, including the range of fully qualified doctors and nurses and receptionists that the location has, and the sort of things that they'll be dealing with in the setting, such as people that have chronic diseases, child health and pregnancy services are all treated in this area. So that's all gone into that location, and I've included why it's suitable because these are different specialisms than what hospitals do. So they'll have a different set of staff, different set of experiences. So my interviews will vary from place to place on there, which is always a bonus. I'd say these issues weren't really problematic because I did have a lot of research behind them all, and the research was transferable onto the document because I'd already written lots about what sort of things the places carry out using their websites and using Google. So I could just use that, and that aided in why it was a suitable location, which was probably the hardest part to cover. Each location, I've got a nice clear map on how to get to the location and the surrounding areas around it, and some pictures of the location, which for the settings like this, which I'm more familiar with, I might not need them as much, but for a hospital, just getting familiar with the location, finding pictures of it will help me to know where I'm going. The ones in Sheffield where I'm not really familiar with, looking at like the bird's eye view map from above, it'll show me some different places on the ground, different places where I could be going to, where the main door is definitely a good start for going to these places. The only thing that I would say I really need to improve on these documents is the content is fine. Some of the locations I didn't manage to find sufficient contacts for, such as Asheville Medical Centre, which I've got up here. I have managed to find 2 phone numbers for it, but of course sometimes phone numbers don't work, so some people prefer to reach out through emails and such, and I wasn't able to find an email for this particular location because I don't think they have one. So perhaps if I look further I could find a receptionist with an email that they use for work that isn't publicised, or something that I could get in touch with, but things that weren't really accessible from my situation at the time, just in college with a computer, couldn't find any more information on that, what I know of. So points for improvement, trying to find some different varieties with location contacts. Most of them I tried to get. I've got a Twitter handle for some of them, I've got emails and phone numbers for various locations, which I'm surprised I actually got any contact for places such as parks, but Sheffield City Council do have a place that manages the parks in Sheffield that you can get in touch with if you do want any advice with it. I wouldn't need any planning permission for going into the parks because it is a public setting, so no planning permission is needed for that one. And the other thing which I would need to improve on for doing these documents in the future, which I will come back later and revisit and add into these documents, is the filming date for each location. I've not got any announced filming dates yet, so I've just put in that section to be announced because I don't know yet when I'll be able to go to them, so I can't fill that section in yet. So the only improvement that I'll have to go is for each to go and fill in all the filming dates when I'll be going to them, which I haven't got access to yet, so I cannot do that. That issue will only be solved by scheduling interviews with people, and when I get permission granted for going onto those locations to actually go and do the filming, which obviously I can't quite do yet, so that will just have to wait for a later date, and then that issue will be resolved. So tomorrow is a Thursday, so I'll be in college online all afternoon, so I will work on filling in another document. Let's just have a look what documents there are to work through. FEP objectives. Just 1 second. So I have quite a few documents to fill out as part of the documentary film in progress. My script and shot list I will not be doing until later on in the production because Leah's advised that these are most wisely done later on in the process just so that they can be done better. Release forms. I feel like I'm going to definitely get release forms done tomorrow, and that's what I'll be working on. In order to get interviews and start getting places so I can fill in my filming dates, I will have to arrange interviews with people, which I cannot do without the release forms, because I will have to advise them that they will have to fill in the release form just to say that I have permission to use the footage they give me before I waste my time filming it. If they say no, I'm not signing that. And some people might want the copy of the release forms before just so they can read through and make sure they're not getting into anything suspicious, which is completely acceptable. I feel like I'll offer to send out the release form prior to visit anyway when I ask them for their thing, just so that they know what they're getting into and they can say no before I take it any further, and I can find substitutes if they are unable to agree with the conditions of the release forms. So tomorrow I will do my best to create a few release forms that are suitable for any different people that I interview. So I'll have release forms for people, release forms for the hospital staff that I'll be interviewing, release forms just for the general public, and I'll have to think more in detail as to what different release forms I need tomorrow, just because off the top of my head I don't really know in detail who I will be interviewing. I don't know if I'll need a release form saying I get planning permission. I don't know if that comes under a release form document, if getting permissions for on-site filming comes under that category. So I will find all that out tomorrow, and then when I have finished the release forms, or not finished release forms, I will evaluate those as follows. So until tomorrow, it's been a rather successful day today, and I hope to carry on this just to get through all these different documents a day at a time and make sure they're all caught up with for the beginning of production. So hi and welcome to my second production log video. So today my official second day of pre-production planning, and yesterday I set myself a target of creating my release form official documents today, and so that's what I've been working on, and I have completed the document. Now this document I already had a rough template for, so I have followed the structure, written my own sections for what I want the document to protect me against, make it specific to my product, and added in some sections that I just thought were relevant that weren't in the template. And now I have my production release form finalised. I think this went really well for me because it's a nice document. It's not too overly complicated, but it's still got quite a wealth of detail to it throughout all the different sections, and it definitely gets all the points across. With this document, I don't think there's anything that, provided that the person signs the agreement, if anything were to come up legally, nobody could do any damage towards me or the product or the college, because for me using their footage or video recordings, because there's no loose ends, it's all really well tied in together and very well thought out. So production release form includes features such as my project title, the producer's name, and there is a gap at the top to insert the date of recording or meeting, which I've not been able to fill in because obviously all the dates and recordings will be different, and a lot haven't been set yet either, so I'll be able to fill that bit in the day. And it certifies that they receive no compensation for being a part of the product, so they'll not get a paycheck or anything for it. They have no ownership over it, and that I have the rights to everything to do with the product, including all of their audio or physical footage. Everything belongs to me and the Barnsley College. So that's what the document says, and the sections that I thought were quite useful to add in were to put that I understand that this means that there'll be no restrictions on how much the product is used, so I can use it for any external usages, including agreeing to be in this project will be publicised via social medias and can be sent off to TV stations to be broadcasted to the public. Now I thought this was a really important thing for me for my project because I included in my targets that I wanted the output of this product in my planning was to send it off to TV stations and to try and get this product on air in other places such as local TV news. But if it's a hit, if people think, oh, I've never seen a product like that before, we want to broadcast it on our station, it might take off, you never know. So this document just allows, if there were an opportunity like that to come along, this project can progress further than what my initial plans have set out to be. Something small to begin with, but there are no limitations with the footage that I have collected. That mean it can't be broadcasted on maybe BBC News, which might be a bit extreme, but if it were to come to that, I would have no problem being able to show them all the release forms and send them off with it. I also included a section in that I just thought meant that this document could be transferable among every different party that I interview, and that's that if they have any special requirements to be able to sign the agreement, to state it in the box. This wasn't included in any of the templates or anything, and I just thought that if I go up to a interviewee and they have some really vital information that I need, or a really good potential interview, then there might be some things that hold them back from wanting to do the interview. So perhaps they want the face blurring out on the footage or something like that, just so that I can get them on screen. If their story is really worthwhile telling, then I will make that extra step just to make sure that it can be included. Or if it comes to it and I do something drastic like blurring a face out in a video product and it just doesn't sit quite right, then I can always just not include the footage in the document, and any requirements that they might need just to make sure that they're comfortable can be put in the document and signed and agreed to. And it just means that it makes people feel more comfortable, like they have a say in what's going on, and it's not just me telling them you will do this for me. It makes it feel like it's a mutual agreement, which I think is a really nice thing to do, just to make everything feel comfortable and feel safe and to want to agree to sign the product. So another bit I added in was to confirm that they have 24 hours after signing the agreement to opt out of it or to make any changes or add in any additional requirements. Now, this is something that a lot of people might choose against, and I was debating. I did think originally maybe 48 hours to opt out of the agreement or something, but I just thought 24 hours is long enough, because given the production window, it'll take me quite a long time to rearrange things if things go badly. So I do need a very strict thing that I will be using any content that I go out of my way to collect, and people can't really turn around and then say, actually, well, I said I would, but now I know that it's gonna be on air, I don't really want it. They have 24 hours if they decide to change their mind or if they have second thoughts, just because it's a fair thing to do, to let everyone, to not tie them into an agreement they don't really want to be in if they feel pressured, or someone says, actually, did you realise that there might be someone in care that's mentioning the product that it might go against their safety, and they realise after the fact and they have to go back on it. It gives them an opportunity to do that. If it wasn't too much of an inconvenience to me, I might extend this window if there were a genuine issue with someone that I interview, but just having this in, if it's not convenient for me and if it's something that would be very detrimental to my product if I missed out on an interview because someone tried to opt out of it and it had been over 24 hours, then I could just say, I'm really sorry, but you agreed to not back out and I can't afford to lose this material at this point in the production process, and that would have to be that. So that's a really nice thing, to just allow people to have a second chance to not want to be tied into some sort of official loop, but to also give me the security that after 24 hours everything that I have collected will be finalised and I can use all the materials and I won't have to find a replacement to them unless there is something wrong, such as corruption of data, which obviously can't be avoided unless you've got plenty of backups, which I'll just make sure I have to do just to minimise any sort of dangers. Now, the way the product turned out I think is really well. It's got a lot of structure to it and it makes sure that everyone can understand clearly. It's not a unclear document and try to trip anyone up anywhere, and they will read this document and know clearly exactly what I'm expecting of them and exactly where they stand with the project that I'm creating and what their rights are, and that's the exact aims before I set into making this product. So I've definitely met all of those aims, and it's a really nice document that I can then use for, it's transferable on anyone that I want to interview because it has got the sections where they can put in their specific needs. So it doesn't matter if I'm interviewing someone on the street just for a quick vox pop where it's 30 seconds, or if it's a 10-minute long interview, it can be any of those projects, and it can all be used through this one document. And it's quite good that I have a document like this that can be used for so many different things, because it just saves me time during the process to focus on other things rather than making lots of different varieties of the same document, which I fell into the trap of doing last year, and I didn't use the majority of them. It would have been just so much easier if I just had one transferable document like this. The issues that I came up against in this document is actually something that I don't think there was much avoidance towards, and that's where I created the document and I'd already got to the bottom sections and written everything that I've just stated that I've included, and an error message flashed up, something about not connecting to a server, and everything that I had worked on for the document nearly coming to a finish, just tying up loose ends, and then it all disappeared and I was back to the original template with none of my original content on it, and I had to start all over again. This was quite an inconvenience because I'd already spent the morning helping out another group doing some on-screen journalism, so I'd lost a lot of time for my own project, and I had to make that up back by redoing this document all over again, which obviously you can imagine was a setback with time. But luckily I stayed on my lunch break, bit of dedication there, passing up on some lunch to get it all fixed. But going forwards, I just need to make sure that I press save on the document as soon as I've completed any section, because that was something that I'd not done. I had saved the document into my file, so it would have just been a case of pressing that little corner button and I would have managed to be able to save as much work as possible, and that error wouldn't have affected me as much as what it did. But I forgot to do this because obviously I've been quite busy trying to get everything done. So just moving forwards, I'll just need to be really mindful of the software does crash, and I need to back everything up, send documents over via Teams to my teachers, not only for marking, but because that's a backup source then that I can access any files that I've created that way as like a backdoor in case the memory stick corrupts or something like this does happen when I'm in the middle of making a document and for whatever reason it does crash and take the entire document down. It was an inconvenience, but luckily because I had already planned out and I had an idea of every section that I wanted to include, it wasn't too difficult for me to just reword everything. So it was slightly different from what it was originally, but I had the same ideas, so I could put it all back into words without having to think about it too much and start over again. So that's that document finished and over and done with. Now I can get rid of the release form. That's another thing ticked off my production schedule, and now I just need to set a target for tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, so I have an hour in college, but I am working tomorrow, so it will have to be a smaller task because I can't really do too much for myself. So tomorrow, what I have noticed, I was flicking through the documents that I had to do again today, and I realised that my production schedule, which is what I am working through now, is pre-production documents, and this comes under the production schedule. I have not completed that yet, which obviously that's something that'll help me to plan what I'll be doing on each day, including during this time I'm doing now with all the pre-production documents that I've been completing, and it's something that I need to do as soon as possible that I haven't completed yet, so that I can organise my time more efficiently and make sure that I have a set day for doing every task, so that no task gets skipped over and I can get them all finished just straight away. So tomorrow I'll be definitely working on creating that document. It's a table and it's got all of the day slots in until the end of the year, and I just need to decide what days are appropriate days for planning and filmings or planning for interviews, and sticking them all into a table and doing my best to stick to that table over the next few weeks as possible. If that document isn't completed tomorrow, then there might be another few days where I don't really have much of an idea of what I need to complete and I'm just making it up as I go along, which isn't a good structure to approach in a project as in detail as this. So that's definitely my targets to complete tomorrow. It shouldn't be too lengthy of a project for me, unlike some other things like completing risk assessments that'll take quite a lot more thought. So that'll be what I'll be completing tomorrow, and hopefully that goes alright for me. We'll see tomorrow if I complete my production schedule and it all fits in accordance and I've got enough time to complete everything. There's only a month left to go now. That's a scary thought. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Hi, welcome to my third production log for the pre-production stage. So yesterday I set myself the target today of completing my production schedule, which is key in moving forwards for my project, because if I don't have this schedule, it'll just be really difficult to manage my time effectively and to know what I need to be doing each day and make sure that nothing gets missed out as I'm moving forwards. If I don't follow a schedule like this, then I do miss out a step in the process, and I realise later on when I need that material and realise I don't have it, then that'll cause a lot of delays for me. It might even make my project, I might have to skip out some crucial bits that would have made it a lot better, and creating this document is just going to stop all those eventualities from happening and just make everything run nice and smoothly. So today that's what I worked on. I worked on creating the production schedule. It's quite a simple but effective document. There is a schedule for every single day up from the 12th of April, beginning of that week, all the way until the week commencing the 17th of May, all day Monday to Sunday, deciding what I'm going to do on each day and sticking to that schedule as best as possible and completing all the tasks that I have highlighted every day on that day. And yeah, so I've gone ahead and done that, and what I think went really well with this document is I did my best to fill up as many days as possible. I didn't put 20 things to be done on the day that I were in college on a Wednesday and leave the rest of the week blank, which I know some people would have gone towards that because some people find it difficult to work outside of college hours. Instead, I decided to take the approach of putting one task among one day, just so that I don't get overwhelmed with anything. It's easy to complete that task and I'm not feeling like I have put myself too much to do on that day. If everything goes really well and it gets done really quickly, then of course I can move on to the next task without it being an issue. However, if I decided to put on 3 different tasks to be completed in a day and something went wrong and I had to find a solution for that problem, these are all things that could increase the time it'd take me to complete that task. So this is a really effective schedule in the sense that it'll not overwhelm me. I'll never have too much to do, but I will still always get everything done all the way up until I'm writing my evaluation. So for the pre-production schedule, I put completing all the documentation that I'll need to do. I put a different document on every single day, and I think another thing that went really well is that this is a completely realistic document, which is something that a lot of people might not be able to say for their production schedules, because it's so spaced out and because the tasks are very simple and straightforward. It'll just be one thing to tick off the list and it'll keep me motivated, which is a really important thing for me, is to actually make sure that I am keeping going on forwards and not just skipping days out because I don't feel like I've got too much to do. You know, everyone needs an emotional break, so by just keeping it so simple, it'll mean that I'll not need to skip a day and I will just be keeping going and adding in any extra work that I've not finished. It can be transferable to the next day if I don't finish anything, because there is so little to do on each day. It's just one task that might take me about 2 hours each, and then it's all over and done with, and I can move on to completing any additional research that I might need for my content side of things, or any extra stages that I decide I come across along the way and think, oh, this might be an excellent thing to come in. And in case that does happen, in case I do come up with something that I think, oh, I would like to do this to my project, I'd like to make some changes, I have left myself a little bit of leeway, or especially during the production weeks, which I think is this most eventually where this has happened. I've put in some squares where I know I've got some free time, which I've dedicated for an opportunity to meet a member for an NHS interview or any sort of interview, which I think it's nice to have those slots because I haven't got anything scheduled. But if I do want to go to scheduling and people say, oh, well, what days do you want to interview me on? Then I can look at this schedule and be like, oh yeah, I've saved this space for giving someone an interview, so I can do that on that day. And I also have some completely blank spaces to add in anything that I haven't thought about, because when it's such a complicated thing trying to put everything all into one document, you can miss things out. I might have forgotten about a key part in the production process that I will need to complete that I haven't yet completed, and therefore I have at least 4 solid spaces, 4 days, where I can just use to either catch up on work or add in additional tasks that I've not yet thought about and I didn't realise that I needed to do until it gets to the production process and I realise that that is something that is necessary. I think this document went really well. I didn't have any issues when I was making this document. I think the hardest thing for me was actually trying to figure out how I could break it down to a point where I could do an equal spread of work among every day without putting too much on one day and not enough on another. That was the hardest thing. I think especially during the editing week, when it's just a week that's all to do with sitting with software open with all your things on, how do you know how to manage your time effectively? How do you know what goals you can set for editing? Because it just seems in itself that it's just one big task, is editing the product together. Instead I decided I'd break it down into each week, a specific aim for the editing on each day. So I broke it down into collecting all the materials and organising it into a folder just to begin with, which is a nice starting point. Making sure everything's together is really crucial, because if you haven't got all your materials in the one place, it's very difficult to find things, or you could find that you think you've put everything in and you find a really exciting clip that wasn't all with the rest of the materials that you then can't add in, which would be quite disappointing if I did find a really good example of work and I didn't put it in because it wasn't organised well enough. So I've got a day dedicated to organising, and then a day for updating my shot list, which is a document I'll be completing during the pre-production process, and editing that so that it matches with the footage that I have managed to obtain, because sometimes when you go out and you do the filming, it's difficult to get all the shots that you set out to get originally, and some of the shots will turn out different, and some of the shots you might have planned to be getting you might actually not end up getting. So it'll be good to just spend a day where I can replan out and organise using the materials that I actually have collected, and then it's a day dedicated to just putting all the clips into order, all put into an order and putting it all in a sequence, so that I can then begin to make fine edits on the next day, adding in audio and then adding in the on-screen graphics on a separate day, just so that it starts off simple and each day is like starting a new level and building it up and up and up until you get to a final product. I've also included some time in this week, which I think is really beneficial, for a focus group for reflection among these stages, just so that the people that my target audience will be able to give me some feedback on whether they think the initial draft of the product that I've made is good enough, and then I can use their feedback to make a final edit from my original edit, adding in all the feedback they've given me on how they would improve the product before I've got a final product to submit. So I did the same thing with the evaluation, layering it up, dedicating a day to the introduction and making a plan for the evaluation, and then a section on writing the ideas generating evaluation, pre-production evaluating day, a production section evaluation day, and then a production log section day, and then finally an editing day. I think it's really beneficial that I have got only a small section to do, because I do tend to overcomplicate tasks. So something that might seem like a small task will take me a lot longer, because I'll find extra things to add in that a lot of people wouldn't even consider putting in, and that's just my nature, is making things a lot harder than what they should be, just to make sure they are distinction level. So this document is going to work really well for me, and I'm really proud that I've achieved it, and from now on I can follow this production schedule going forwards, and I'll always be on track for what I need to be doing. So using this production schedule, let's see what I've got to do next. I've added in my next target for... So, pre-production schedule document completed, that's out the way, and the next task I have given myself is, just over the weekend, I'm going to be researching a few people who I want to interview, finding some people for the NHS, and writing a list of potential people that I can reach out at a later date to try and schedule an interview with them. I think it's a nice idea to try and, just a simple task while I'm working all weekend, to try and make sure I can definitely find enough people to reach out to get all my interviews finished. And for my next college day, my goal is to complete my equipment and budgeting document. Now, seeing as the researching is for people in a really big task, I'll either make just a really short production log video just to say who I've researched into, or I'll just combine the two production logs and I'll do the researching that I've done over the weekend and my task for Monday in the same one. So on Monday, the equipment and budgeting section for my pre-production should be completed, which is basically where I'll just find out all the equipment that I might need to do and any additional costs that will be put into my production, which I've already researched into, so those should be fairly straightforward to get on with, and we'll do that on Monday. Hi and welcome to another production log where I'm still carrying out my pre-production planning. The last target I set for myself was to complete my equipment and budgeting document, which will help me with my FMP because it will give me an idea of what equipment I need to book out, gather, and just know what I need to locate to be able to carry out an effective filming process and an effective production just in general, and also the costs that I might need to pay to create my product. There are a few costs that I might have to pay, but I have been advised by my tutor that any costs I should go to him beforehand because he might be able to help me out just to find a spare so I don't have to pay as much as possible. Of course, things like transportation aren't something that I can borrow for free, so they are all costs that I'll have to pay. So what have I done? I've created a pre-production document that details a variety of items that I might need while carrying out the pre-production process, including categories such as equipment, extra props, costumes, and then the budgeting for any additional items. So the equipment includes things such as cameras, microphones, to a computer and memory stick to collect all my footage on. Also includes things such as my research, because of course they are all tools and equipment that you need to carry out an effective production process. So I think I did really well with this document because I have a lot of detail in there. There's a lot of things that a lot of people might have skipped over. I did think quite far into this. It was supported by the research that I've already done on my equipment and budgeting, so it made it a lot easier for me to conduct, and because I'd already thought about it previously, I really thought about the list, added in as many items as I could think of as possible, and then I could add to the list when I went back and reflected on my researching, just to add in anything extra that I didn't have originally, and that allowed me to really get as much as possible, so I won't have missed out any items, and then later on I hope that I'll not come back to this list and think, oh well actually I need this item and it's not on here and I'm not prepared to get it. I don't think I'll find myself in a situation like this. So when it comes to filming, I'll have all the resources that I need to have a good filming day, which is what we want, and this is what this document will support. I think it went really well because each of the items that I have identified, I've also given a supporting argument as to why I will need this item and where I'm going to get it from. This allows me to just be clear on how I'm going to obtain all these items, and even if I'm not going to come back and, such as clothes and stuff, sometimes you don't need reminding that you're going to get clothes from your wardrobe. But there are certain items where I haven't previously thought, how am I going to actually get this item? I'm going to need it, but where will I get it from? It really just allowed me to just think about how I'm going to get all of the resources that I need. Anything that I need to book, I'm now aware that I need to book to get that item out in advance, and that will just stop me from finding myself in a position where I don't have the things that I need and I'll not be able to get it because I haven't booked in advance, or I haven't found someone that's able to lend me the items that I need that I don't actually have, or anything that I do need to order from Amazon or online or find from a shop. I can do that prior to going out filming. So the sections and where I will get it from have been really useful, and I think that went really well with this document. In terms of any issues, I didn't really come up with issues with this document. It's pretty straightforward. It was quite difficult in the sense of trying to make sure I'd not miss anything out. It's like making a shopping list. You can't really see what things you need when they're not there to look for. So to find out all of the things that I'll need without actually having a clear idea of everything that I'll be doing just yet, because all the pre-production's not done and all the production's not done, it was difficult to try and not miss out any items, and I still might have missed out some items, so I may have to come back to this list in the future and add some extra things onto it, or I'll just have to be prepared to make a spontaneous trip out to get something that I need that I don't have, which I have accounted for within my timetabling that I have done. I have got some free slots where I can pop to the shops and grab something that I need for pre-production if that's what it comes to. So there weren't any issues as such, but in reflection on this document, there is something that I would like to do that I haven't managed to finish with it, and that is for the budgeting. I would like to be able to make a minimum cost and a maximum cost for what the budgeting will cost me throughout my production. So for instance, some things I might not have to buy, some things some things I might definitely have to pay for, including a bus ticket. I'll definitely need to take a bus, but there is a route to Sheffield that I've identified which you can take just through getting an 80p bus. If this fits in with the time, the bus timetable does fit in with the time where I plan to visit the location, I might only have to pay 80p for the bus there and back rather than paying £8 for the train there and back, which is what it would cost me, and that obviously will cause a lot less costs to be in place. Same thing for the historical and the archive footage. Some companies do charge quite a bit for the uses of their footage. It can be anywhere from a few pence per video to a few pounds, and so that might be quite costly if I can't get all of the footage that I need on my own accord. I would like to make a minimum budgeting list of the things that I definitely will need to buy, so I can definitely save up that amount to a maximum of what I'll not definitely spend more than, just so I have a price range and I can save up that amount or ask for support from college for that amount if I can't afford it myself. So moving forwards, that is something that I would like to develop into this document when I get some free time, possibly at the end of the week when I've finished doing all the pre-production documents. If I've got some free time, I'll go back and add into that document along with any other documents that I want to add some more to. And that's really as far as it goes with this document. There's not much more to mention. It really went really well. I'm not sure how useful this document will be moving forwards because, as I say, I've got my list of equipment, and once all my equipment's booked out, which hopefully it will be within the coming weeks, I'll not need to look back at this document again, because it is a lot of the stuff you might not think about to begin with, but when you go to, other than planning on, it will be useful to look on a morning when I'm about to set out for a location, just reflect upon this list. I will use it for that, just to make sure that I've got everything with me before I set off out filming and arrive there and realise I've missed something out. So other than that, it's definitely not the most useful document that I've done, but it is a resource that I will be reflecting upon later on in my production process. In terms of next week, let's open up my production schedule. So, equipment and budgeting documents have been completed. So my task for tomorrow is a Tuesday, and I will write some structured emails that I can send out for people to gain planning permissions for locations. So I'll be needing to contact places such as the hospitals to film an on-site visit, and tomorrow I'll be spending some time just writing a structure to the emails for different places and making sure that they cover all of the things that I need to ask them. This includes stuff like, am I allowed to film your present premises? Would you allow me to film inside the building? Are there any precautions that I will need to take to film inside the building, such as having a COVID vaccine, obviously wearing a mask? Would I be able to bring a friend with me? Which days work best for you? And I'll have to make a really detailed email that's not too long, but covers everything that I need to know, so people can just read it, respond back quickly, and I'll have an answer as to whether or not I need to find a new location or if I can go ahead with the filming there. I also want to make sure I ask them, if it's not possible for me to go filming, whether or not I can have some footage that they already have of the hospital that I can include in my documentary, such as videos from around the premises, some of the hallways, some of the wards, any of their own personal archive footage, if they have some, would be really useful to me if I can't go inside the premises, or if I can only film outside, or if I can't go there at all. So I'll be doing all that tomorrow, and perhaps I'll only need one email, perhaps I'll need a couple, just to send to different people and ask them whether for permissions and also for conducting interviews, writing emails for people to come in and have an interview with me. So that's all the tasks for tomorrow, and until then, farewell. Hello and welcome to another production log video. So I recently set myself targets of finding my contacts and trying to get in contact with people to arrange interviews and filming permissions, etc. So that's basically what I've done over this session. I've arranged different people. It's been really useful that I've had lots of friends and people around me that have reached out to people that they know on their end of things to allow me to get some interviews that I wouldn't have been able to have found on my own. So I'll see if I can find some emails with some people that I've contacted. I've contacted a student paramedic to get their point of view from my documentary, as like going as a student. Do you think the industry is as difficult, is it as difficult working here as what you imagine it would be, or is it harder? What are some things that you didn't expect when you first started training into becoming a student paramedic? So hopefully she'll be able to give me an insight into that sort of things. If not, I have another, she's not a paramedic, but she's a trainee nurse, and I'll contact her if the student paramedic doesn't get back to me and allow me to do some interviews. I've contacted some GPs. One of the GPs just works at general doctor's practitioner, so that's sort of a different, a different setting, different patients, different group of people, different workload. And then another GP who also acts as a manager for safeguarding. He has 4 different jobs, so it'll be very interesting because obviously he works quite a lot. He's got lots of experience in the medical field, always worked for the NHS. To be honest, I think the strongest part of this section of work has been how many professional, really professional people I've been able to get in contact with, and also the variation in all the different people that I've been able to contact. So yeah, I asked my tutor, he said his mum works with quite a lot of senior nurses. They're called senior sisters, and there's 4 or 5 senior sisters have all been contacted sort of from the same department, and hopefully they'll all be able to do an interview with me. There's a lady called Suzanne, and he says that she'll be willing to have a chat with me about some of the things that she does in her role. So yeah, I've had to use various different methods to reach out to people because not everyone's. I had an issue where I was trying to send emails over to NHS email addresses, and it wasn't going through for some reason on the system. Like it was just getting an email back a few minutes later saying mail return to sender, which I didn't even know were a real thing on emails, but basically they're not going through. So with the lady who Lee told me would most likely do an interview, and I really wanted to reach out to her, I ended up finding her on Facebook and sending a message over Messenger and getting him to message his mum to tell her to add me back on Facebook so I could get in contact with her. To reach out to people, I sort of had the same message. It was basically just an email that I wrote that constructed of who I was, details of the project, some of the things that I'm trying to include and what sort of questions that I'm going to want to be finding out from people, and places that I can meet up with people, how we're going to actually go about doing the interview, which is important information, especially for people that are really concerned over sort of lockdown restrictions. And yeah, it was quite a long email. Looking back, maybe I should have made it a little bit short for people that didn't want to read it, but I did make sure that I gave my number on the end of it, so that if they just wanted to ring me up and speak to me about it rather than reading the entire email, they also had that option. So I think that was sort of a way around that really long email. But all of the information that went into it was really useful, sort of stuff that really needed to be in there. So it doesn't matter that it was long, because it was important. I've had a few responses back just asking questions such as, when would you want to be arrange an interview, I did say, you know, sort of anytime for the next few weeks, I'm, you know, free. Just let me know and I'll work around your schedule. So hopefully we're going to get some schedules straight away. Hopefully in the next few days we'll have some responses with some of those. But for now, it's a really solid start. The only thing I am cautious about is I've been given the email for the CEO of Barnsley Hospital from a sort of an acquaintance, and he got in contact with the CEO asking for permission to go and film in the hospital, and also two of the sort of his advisors that look over like his emails, sort of secretaries, two secretaries. So their email went to not only him but also two secretaries explaining what I wanted to do. So hopefully that gives me a better chance of being able to get into contact with them through email, just to see if I can get filming permissions. Their email obviously was slightly different because it was asking if I could go and arrange to film on premises. I think a strength with this email is making sure that I identified that I was willing to take a COVID test, sanitise equipment, you know, only come on my own, come in a certain time period and leave for a certain time, and, you know, completely be flexible with them and their COVID restrictions, making sure the visit was as safe as possible. I also asked if it wasn't possible if I could have some of their own footage, because, you know, if I can't film, then, you know, a lot of the people that I've been in contact with work at Barnsley Hospital, so it'd be nice for in their interviews being able to slot in bits of, you know, the hospital, even if it's, you know, just basic sort of footage. It's better than filler footage, and it also shows that I've gone out of my way, even if it is not my own footage, to find filler shots, because filler shots is going to be the thing that really sets me down on this, because obviously there'll be a lot of editing, a lot of clips that I'll need making transitions smoother. So we'll just see where we go from there. And I asked them if they could give me any of their own footage, and also if I could just have permission to film outside and around the premises, you know, just sort of in the car park in the open air rather than going into the building, if it was completely not possible at all for me to go in with sort of their restrictions, because obviously it is sort of a really difficult situation that we're in at the minute. You can't expect, you know, the place on the front line to just let a random student in and do filming, even though it is what I want to do, and yeah, I would be very happy if I was able to get there. So yeah, now we've got in contact with a lot of people. We're going to spend the next few days waiting to get responses, sending emails back and forth, you know, replying to people's queries and trying to set up some dates. I'll be keeping track of these dates in a document and all the conversations to show everyone that I've recorded, just for, you know, further reflection. If anyone wants to see all the people that I've contacted and what I said to them. And so yeah, I'll be working on developing that document over the next few days. And yeah, I will be able to start working on hopefully a script and a shortlist now, because obviously I've got sort of most things that I'm needing to move forward into the production stages other than having the script. So as long as I've got all my research and all the facts that I need to support the script, I might need to find, you know, facts and stuff that fit in with the script better than what I've already researched into. I'll be able to develop the script, which will take a longer length of time than what everything else has done so far. So we'll just have to see how that all goes tomorrow, or in however long it takes me to get the script done. Hi, welcome to another production log. So what I've been working on for the past few days, for a few days longer than what I expected, to be honest, is the script and shortlist aspect of the pre-production. So this is the last pre-production steps that really need to be taken before we can move into all the filming and getting everything, all the bits and bobs, you know, sort of sorted. And it was definitely the hardest bit of the pre-production planning, harder than what I anticipated, most definitely. So I wrote the script first, and it was really difficult to sequence the script because not knowing, you know, what shots I was going to take, you know, who I was going to interview, what the answers to my questions were going to be, not knowing fully about what their experiences are. Basically, this product is supposed to be me interviewing people, and then in between they tell me about, you know, they tell me their experiences with different things that covering different topic matters,
I join the topic matters together with on-screen presenting shots. So I can't really plan out what they say, most definitely. I can't put that bit into the script. I'll just have to, sort of insert the questions that I'm asking them. So every question that I'm anticipating to ask people and get responses from, I've written into the shot list. So then the responses for those questions will go under that section, and that's the order that the questions will follow. That's the only way that I can sort that out, which also makes it really difficult because it isn't until after, I've interviewed all the people and I've got the footage of what the interviews went like. I've been to the places. I can't, decide what shots I'll need because I don't know what I don't know what they're going to say. I literally can't really plan out this product, how it's going to turn out, because it is so heavily dependent on these interviews and what the people say in the interviews. So I think it's definitely a really challenging thing to actually sort of plan out what it's going to turn out like. I think because I've done so much ideas generating, it's really helped me to have a really clear understanding of where I'm going with the interviews and what I need to ask people, what I need to find out, and sort of how I'm going to piece everything together. So I'm not worried about how it is going to turn out. I am worried though that I'm not going to be able to follow the shortlist exactly. I'm not going to be able to follow the script exactly, because there just might be some questions that when I edit it together, there are some people answer 2 questions in one. Some people, there's no good answers for a question at all. People just happen to don't happen to have knowledge on that topic question that I've asked. So some questions have to be cut out, which means some parts of the script will have to be cut out. So I've just tried to make it as long as possible, so that then the bits that aren't covered with the interviews, or that just don't work, don't fit in the product, or have been joined in with another question, I can cut those out accordingly and then film the on-screen presenting shots once I know what's going on with the script. The on-screen presenting shots definitely need to go after the interviews have been conducted, so I know which ones I need to film or which ones I don't need to film. So the way I've approached this script is I've done my content research alongside it. With my questions for interviewees, I have written all the questions that I'm planning to ask people, all the things that I want to find out, I've already got them written down, and each question I've sort of made a sequence, and I've tried to find a structure that makes the questions flow into each other and which way is the best way to get from the top to the bottom. The top being what are we covering, who are these people, what are they doing, what experience have they had, and what is the output, what message are we getting from this, which obviously is that we need to support healthcare workers more, and how we go about doing that and how they want us to approach treating them better. So the questions needed to flow in an order that sort of made that message, and that just made weaving through things like, the dangerous aspects, the fun aspects, in a way that made everything slightly different, so we weren't just sort of droning on, keeping it interesting, keeping the topics moving quickly, not keeping anything too similar together, and making sure that obviously everything that does go together is still linkable but isn't identical. So I think the scripts turn out very good. I think there's a lot of research gone into it. Everything has been referenced really well. It's all gone into the Harvard referencing format. I've used lots of articles, lots of graphs, lots of different sort of points to get research from. The only issue I had is while writing this script and actually getting all the content to put into it, I had an issue where the wires in my computer got kicked and I lost the majority of the research that I'd done into finding sort of facts and statistics for the script while this error had occurred from whoever it was that kicked the wire. And I have not saved my work for the entire day that I had been doing sort of this research, which means that I will now have to go back and find all the other articles again, which I have done. It was difficult because obviously I'd already knew what the statistics were that I were including. I'd already included them, already written them in the script. I'd just not got them into the research document once I'd found them, and I'd not got the references for them anymore, which obviously I can't use statistics that I can't reference, and I can't reference things without the websites and the articles that I've found. Some of the websites and articles I spent ages trying to find, particularly on the amount of student paramedics in England. Not student paramedics, just students in general, for the student paramedic that I'm going to go and interview. and there were 6,000 places, and I remember that statistic because it took me so long to find the statistic, and that was one among them that got deleted, and I had to try and dig and find the article that I had lost all over again, which is very frustrating. It was very difficult, and it really, I really did, it really wound me up at first, but watching that I'd managed to overcome it, found, I think there was maybe one or two things that I included in my original research that I wasn't able to locate back, but those didn't end up making it into the script anyway, I don't believe, so it's not too much of an issue, but it is a shame that I did some more work that no one will ever see because it got deleted. That's always a bit of a downer, but the work that I have got I know is of a high quality. It's all got into the script, the statistics flow on from the questions and give more detail on sort of the things that we'll be covering in the questions. So now it's just about making sure the questions all get answered in the way that I'm hoping to with what they say, to make sure that it still flows into the next question well, if that makes any sense. With the shortlist it was equally as difficult to make because obviously the shortlist looks like this. It's all the opening sequence, all the questions that I've asked, everything that I wanted to include, all from beginning to end, but it can only go from a certain point. Vox pops here. What are the vox pops going to say? Don't know. Haven't filmed them yet. Don't know what it's going to turn out like. So I can't say, oh, with this vox pop, put in this sweeping shot of this place and this person, because I've not done it yet. I don't know what it's going to look like. And same with the interviews. I don't know where the locations are going to be. Most of the things that I've got, planning to do aren't finalised. So I'll have to do that, at a later point. It's not going to be until I'm editing where most of the filler shots can be decided. I'm just going to have to make sure when I'm on location I get as much as what I can possibly get, and everything that I don't get will have to be stock footage that I'll find off of various free stock footage websites, and all that stock footage I'll just have to make sure that it includes camera techniques that I've learnt. It's appropriate to what I'm using, and it doesn't look like cheesy, like a lot of stock footage does look. So yeah, I feel like in a way it's a bit half-hearted because it's probably not something that's going to be very easy to follow because it is such an unpredictable product that I am making. So yeah, it's just sort of at a point now where we're doing as best to make it up as we go along, make sure that what we're making up as we go along is of a high quality, but that while we're making it up I've got the idea of what I'm making, and I've got a short list that has a structure of the questions, how I'm going to film each interview and sort of things like that, how I'm going to begin it and close it in a strong way. Those are things that can be influenced, and where all the bits and bobs are going to go in it, where the title sequence comes, all things like that. So definitely the hardest documents I've had to make so far, but turned out quite successful, other than quite a few mishaps. And now once the interviews are all finalised and recorded in my document, I'll be able to move on to my production process and start interviewing some people. So all positive so far.
Hi and welcome to another production log video. Today I did what I can class as sort of primary research. It is primary research, but this was more for the purposes of my production because today I interviewed a lovely guy called Matt from RTV. So RTV make professional documentaries. They do all kinds of things, sort of like Homes Under the Hammer style, and also quite a lot of medical documentaries like 24 Hours in A&E, productions like that. So very closely linked with the sort of idea I'm doing in the medical field. So it was really valuable for me to be able to go and speak with professionals in the documentary making industry who often works on products that are similar to my product idea. When I spoke with Matt today, my intentions for this session were to find out more about the market of the documentary industry at the minute, sort of current trending documentary styles, just the things that are like really do's and don'ts the industry, and also more specifically how to edit properly editing is a big part of the documentary to make it look professional. If you don't edit it properly, if you don't have the skills to be able to put everything in a sequence that looks like a professional product would be sequenced in that way, you probably won't go very far with the documentary, and I probably won't be very successful with the outcome of what my product ends up being. So for this reason, I decided to go into an interview, talk with Matt. I had tons and tons of questions prepared for him to get everything I absolutely needed out of different tips and tricks for editing. I asked him about how they sequence their products, what kind of layers they put into it, from music to, you know, the audio, the backing tracks, the voiceovers, any sort of on-screen graphics, what layers do they put in there. And to be fair, I think it was quite informative. Yeah, there were definitely some questions that he answered that were more informative than others. There were quite a few things that weren't very helpful when I tried to get some answers out of him, and it sort of became apparent that he weren't going to answer them to the sort of requirements that I were expecting from him. So for example, I was asking him about what style, if he was making my documentary, what style would he put that under, how would he film it? If he was making my product, were there any things that he would change about it? How would he approach it? I really wanted an industry professional to tell me with this idea what they would do with it, what would they make with it, so I could decide whether that was something that was within my capabilities, and I could then go ahead and try and use this style and create a product that was how an industry style, you know, an industry professional would have made the product, so I could see it for myself. And I don't think he really wanted to sort of answer that in case he, you know, messed up the product, so he wasn't responsible if anything did go wrong, if I did copy the style and something tragic happened, which is understandable, but that, you know, that was sort of what I really wanted to get out of it. I really wanted to be able to copy an industry style and make my product as professional as possible. You know, it's one of those things where I can choose a style, I can choose and say I'm going to film it in this style, but whether that's what's actually best for my product is beyond my knowledge at this stage, because I've never worked in that industry, I've never made another complete documentary before. I don't have a sort of the same familiarity as what he does with matching up an idea and deciding how he should approach that issue. So what didn't go well is I didn't get all the answers that I wanted. There were things that I wanted to get out of it that I didn't manage to, because he was sort of sceptical about what he should answer and what he shouldn't, and you know, trying to make sure that he didn't say anything that could cause me to have an issue with the product, which I don't blame him for. It wasn't what I wanted, but it's what I got, so we're going to work with the answers that we did get. We did get some really informative answers. You know, he told me a lot about the current industry, and he gave me a lot of advice for some common mistakes that are made, so I can try and avoid doing these in my product. This includes things such as trying to make it too long. He told me that always that the shorter product, the one that sort of follows the same idea and doesn't try and go too crazy and cover too many topics all at the same time, that's the one that's most successful. He told me for my style, although he does prefer people that just choose one strong interviewee and just stick with them, and, you know, try not really to interview anyone else, because I've already, you know, prepared to do a product that's got a lot of interviews in it and a lot of different people all giving their opinion on one similar topic. This was an idea that would work, but a way to make it more effective for me was to choose the strongest interview when I've conducted them, and to pick that person with the strongest interview and sort of play everyone else around that one interview. So, and to not be afraid to not include someone that has not given the best interview. If you've got a lot of quality materials and one that's not quite as good, don't use that interview just to say you've used the interview. Use the other stronger one and neglect the ones that aren't up to the standards you need them to be. I think that's some good advice, because everyone that I've taken the time out of my day to, you know, go and interview them and had a look, see what they're all about. If I went to an interview and said I'm going to include you in my product and then I didn't, I'd feel so guilty. So I think it's good going into interviews to have that sort of mindset that I don't need to include you. You know, you're doing it for me, but if you're not helpful, you're not helpful, and that's, you know, it's harsh, but it's true. So a really lovely conversation with Matt. I've drawn up some conclusions from the market research. I've written all about the different things that we discussed and what I'm going to be taking away from this product, the things that he told me that I'm going to implement into the product when I create it and edit it. That same again just involves things like I will be trying to find my strongest interviewee and focusing on them. I'll be trying to keep it as short as possible and as sweet as possible. Not over transitioning things, not including too many, you know, the ripple effects and not going trigger happy with editing software and over editing. There's a very standard balance where he said that professionally they don't really edit at all, they just sort of cut between scenes, they keep them really snappy, they move along, and they don't have any sort of transitions in between cut scenes, they flow off of each other without needing to insert transitions. So I'll be implementing that in my product as well, and keeping it as traditional as possible and not having too many effects in there, just sort of to not throw it off balance and make it seem like the last thing that I took from the footage, the interview that we did today, is when I did my first sort of product with the course, I put a lot of music in there, and the feedback that I got from that from a lady called Harriet was that I put in too much music. Some things, you know, there were too much music through it and it didn't need as much music as what it should have had. So developing off of that feedback from what I know wasn't something that I was doing right before I started this product, I decided to ask him what's the sort of healthy balance to include when you're using music in a product, and he told me to make sure that when you inserting music, you're thinking about the effect that it's actually having to the product. Music should be adding to develop or create an emotion. It should have a purpose, there should be a reason why the music is there, and if it's just playing for the sake of playing, it often shouldn't probably be there in the first place. And I think that's really good advice, to just to sort of, when you put music in, to just think, actually, do I need it to be here, or would silence and just the background noise be much more effective, so you can really engage with what the person is saying? Because sometimes when you've got music playing and it's not serving a purpose and someone's trying to speak, it can take away from what they are trying to say. So some really informative points from Matt. I really enjoyed speaking with him, and I definitely took a lot out of the interview, even if there were some things that I wanted to get out of it that I didn't quite get out of it. So using this interview in the future, I'm going to work on the points that I have listed today when I go into editing my product, make sure I'm editing the product in the style that sort of fits in with the market research, and try and identify, you know, this is where the industry is in demand at the minute, this is how I'm going to make my product fit the gap in the market, which I think I'm already going to do, because he did say there is a big gap in the market for products aimed towards younger people, and that is the target audience that I've identified. So that's a really positive thing for me to be taking out of this today. Also, in the sort of upcoming next few sessions, I will be just finishing off some pre-production sort of sections that I've not finished off yet. This includes like risk assessments. I've got a few risk assessments and stuff like that to do, and then we're going to move into the actual production process, where I get to put the feedback that I've received today into practice when going and doing my interviews. And then in the future, when I begin editing my product, I'll be able to show this again and show how I've edited the product in the style, and using correspondingly to the feedback he's given me today, how I've worked on the advice he's given me and how I've implemented it into my work. So this is where I've gone from here. Another really positive day, really informative contribution to my pre-production, setting me up in a really good sort of position to be heading into the production stage now, and I'm feeling really confident going in there.
Hi and welcome to another production video. We're not having a very good day, to be honest, today. This was the first interview I had scheduled. I met a lovely lady called Jo Pons, and I met this interviewer because she is someone on my course's mum. She works in intensive care, so she was a really good interview to have. I went to the interview. I was really nervous because it's the first interview I've done in a while, and the first one for this project, so I was feeling a little bit unprepared, but I had everything that I could possibly need. I took it all with me, made sure that I was really organised. Now the first thing that went wrong is what I didn't realise is that the SD card that I use for all of my filming, I must have left it in a camera at college when we did a news day, because I keep it in a little pouch, and I went to go grab that at the last minute, which really should have been the first red flag, that I shouldn't have left it until the last minute to grab something as important as the thing that's going to record every bit of memory for me. But luckily I managed to borrow Luke's SD card, and I managed to get all the filming done. However, because I didn't have my SD card with me in the camera, I wasn't able to do any test shots with the microphone to make sure the camera was working properly, because I didn't have the SD card to do that. I had to wait until I got to the location to get the SD card off of him before I could start filming, and that meant that I completely forgot. I didn't know how to check the audio on the camera. I didn't know how to get up the footage that I just filmed and play it back to myself to make sure it was working properly, because I was so unfamiliar with the camera. I feel like I shouldn't have been as unfamiliar as what I were, because I went and I knew from the minute I got the equipment I didn't know what I was doing with any of it. Technology is literally my least favourite thing, and I'm awful when it comes to doing anything to do with technology. So I made specific sure that Daryl went through every little thing with me. But what I think long story short, the entire interview I filmed, I've got back, I've uploaded all the footage onto my computer, and there's not a single bit of audio with any of them. And I'm so frustrated, because Jo were lovely. She did some really good, and I loved working with her, because just everything that we did together, she was so professional, she was so lovely. She gave some really good stories, some really good statements, and the answers were so in-depth and so clear, and they were really personal as well. She answered everything beautifully, and I got so much content from her. I had nearly 15 minutes worth of filming just in terms of the interview, and then I got tons and tons of filler shots with her as well, to like of her doing different things. I had to make a cup of tea, I had to pick up a badge, I had her looking out of the window, certain things like that. We did loads of stuff together, and these went really well. The filler shots were brilliant, and the interview, even Lee said it was framed beautifully. It was a really good interview, the way I set it up. So really, it all did go well, other than the fact that there was no audio. Why was there no audio? Now, I think when I was so caught up when I was trying to learn how to use all the equipment with Daryl, it was showing me levels and things that I didn't understand, and I was trying so hard to understand the complex stuff in case I needed it, that I completely forgot that he told me that these microphones have an on and off switch. So I had the microphone set up on the top of the camera, positioned well, I had it plugged in, I had it very ready to go. But what I've only ever worked with lapel mics. Every time I've done a newsie, every time I've recorded, I've had a lapel mic attached to me. Obviously lapel mics don't have on and off switches, and this one, because it was a different type of microphone, I wasn't aware that I had to switch it on. I didn't know there was an on off switch, and that is why the camera wasn't picking up any audio on its own, because there was something plugged into it to pick up the sound which wasn't switched on. So I didn't get anything. It was like a silent fuzzy hum of stillness, and nothing got picked up. And that means essentially everything that I've done today is completely invalid. I can't use that interview as it is. I can't even try and figure out what it is that she said over the top of it, because it's so long, there's so much content. I couldn't go back to you now and tell you word for word anything that she said, because there was just so much that happened during that very short space of time that we were together. So I have been in contact with her, I have let her know the situation, and I am hoping that she'll be able to reschedule and I'll be able to get another interview done with her, because if I can refilm the interview, all of the filler shots that I have filmed are still completely useful, because obviously I'll be using those to mask the voiceover, and the voiceover will be the audio behind them. So if I can go back and refilm it, all the really good filler shots I've got are still useful to me. And I think the most important thing now is to try and just learn from the mistake and to become more familiar with the camera for the next interviews that I've got booked. And all the nerves, everything that I thought were going to go wrong, everything that I worried about, at least I've got it all out the way, and hopefully this will mean that next time I am a lot more confident going in, and I'll be more clear on what I do with it. I do now know what I'm doing with the camera. I know how to play the audio back and do some test shots. I feel like one thing led to the other, and it was just a series of unfortunate events when it came to this interview. And even though Jo were lovely, we had a really good conversation, and I learned a lot from her. It was very informative for me. The first perspective I've heard from an NHS worker. It's the first real life account I've heard of any sort of stories, and I felt really engaged with her. It was really lovely hearing from her. I can't even remember all the questions that I asked her, because I sort of moved away. I had questions in front of me asking her, but because she asked some things that I were going to ask and others I didn't think were relevant anymore, I rolled with it. I rolled with what she said, and I was asking her questions that I wanted to know, because I thought, well, if I want to know it, my viewer's going to want to know it. And I think that's something that did go really well, that I didn't just stick to what I had planned out.
and I tried to do more. I tried to do what I thought was informative and what I thought would be good for the product. Some of the things that went really bad was not being complete. I took the boom mic with me as a backup microphone to set up and put on the side of her and make sure that I had audio recorded, and I was so paranoid that she didn't want to be me to be in a space, that I would be an inconvenience to her time, and I just wanted to get done as quick as possible. I completely forgot to set the microphone up, which, looking back, I shouldn't have even had those feelings because she was so willing to work with me. I should have just got it out and said, well, we're doing it anyway, I'm going to set up extra things, I'm going to take that bit of extra time to make sure that I didn't have to go do it again, because if I have to go do it again, I either A, can't use anything at all, so all of the time's completely wasted, or I have to waste a lot more time than what it would have been for me to just have set the Zoom mic off going and recording the audio that I could have used as a backup, and I wouldn't have needed to re-record at all. So that's one thing that went well, and I just need to learn from my mistakes that I need to take everything that I've got and use it. Well, there's no point in taking stuff if you don't use it, and I learned this the hard way, because if I would have used the equipment that I'd taken with me, the Zoom mic, I'd have had all the audio on backup, I could have matched it over the top of the interview, and I wouldn't have had an issue with anything. Another thing that went wrong is I trusted Luke to get some shots of side angles. What documentary people do, they film from the side, they film alternative angles of people that they're interviewing, so you can flitch between the different shots, and that's how you frame it. And so when things get boring, if you've not got filler shots to go over the top, you can just switch to the perspective you're looking at, and it will work really well. It'll fit in together. I am not going to lie, I was very annoyed with him, because I asked him to record backup audio on my phone, which he didn't do. And I also asked him to record some filler shots. I told him I wanted a close-up shot, I showed him how to frame it, I showed him where I wanted it to be, I showed him the thing that I was filming and how I wanted it similar but on a different angle. And the footage that I got, Joe was right in the left-hand corner. There was complete white wall of space. It was completely far away from her. It was not a zoomed-up shot at all, and it was just awful. It was shaking about, it was moving, and it was not a shot that we've been taught to do on that course at all. I don't know what he was doing, but he did 3 videos of the same sort of shot, and then apparently my phone ran out of storage space. Now, I didn't stop the interview to tell me that my phone ran out of storage space. We could continue trying to record more. He just stood there for the entire interview and didn't say anything until it was all over and done with, and then said, oh, and by the way, I've not recorded barely any of that because your phone's out of storage space. I think it's partially my fault for entrusting him with my product. It's a solo thing. I am doing it all on my own. If I wouldn't have trusted him with it, it wouldn't have gone the way it did. I should have showed him more clearly what I wanted him to do. I should have done a test shot. I should have given him an example. I'm not sure even at that would have helped. But yeah, it was quite disheartening, because if I would have got the backup audio that way, if he'd have done what I'd have asked, if it had been, but perhaps he was saying, yeah, I can do all this, because he didn't want to disappoint me, but it was beyond his capabilities and he didn't really know what he was doing, but he didn't want to upset me. I wish I would have had a bit of communication with him. I wish he would have been able to tell me that he didn't know what he was doing, because I don't think he films a lot of documentaries. So that one is on me for not helping him and supporting him in the right way to get what I wanted, because I'm so specific as to what I want. Not that it matters anyway, because I might have the opportunity to go back and try over again with what I'm doing. I forgot the questions that I'd asked her, so I wanted to record the questions that I was asking her separately, because I only had one camera. I only had one camera and my phone ran out of storage space, so I couldn't record anything else on that, which was really frustrating. So I had to try and figure out what questions I'd asked her through the interview and film myself separately saying those, so I could alternate between the shots of me asking the questions and her answering them, so it looked like they were having a conversation properly. Whereas I was sat as like a placeholder to the side of the camera, so she knew where to look and where to speak to frame the shot properly. So all in all, a bit of a rubbish day. It couldn't have gone worse. I'm going to say it could have gone worse, but it couldn't have. I mean, there's nothing worse than doing a whole interview. I travelled really far to get to that interview as well. It wasn't somewhere that was local to me.
It was like half an hour drive out there and back, and I've got nothing from it, and to know that I'm potentially gonna have to do it again is very disheartening for the first run of actual filming. A lot of the interviews that I'm hoping to get have not been confirmed yet, so this is the one sort of confirmed solid thing that I can definitely do and I can definitely use, and now I don't have it to use. I'm feeling very, very gutted, very let down, very disappointed, but it is a learning curve, because obviously some things did go well. The shot was framed beautifully, we got some amazing filler shots. The way I communicated it was amazing, the way we got our story really flowing, and that I didn't just stick to the script and I got things that were personalised to what I wanted to know was a very, very positive thing. Just the experience of knowing what to expect and not to be nervous for the next time I get to the interview are all things that went really well. Not having recorded backup audio, not using my resources that I should have done, and not educating the people I was working with well enough to what I wanted and what I expected of them really let me down during this filming session, and I'm going to have to fix and redeem myself from this experience. The ways I'm going to do this is by trying to rearrange the interview, try and do it again, try and make sure that I've got the footage that I need so I can reuse the filler shots, and I'll still get some really good content because I know she's got lots of good stories to tell. I've heard them firsthand, I know what she's going to say. I'm still going to include the first interview that I did. I'm going to upload it somewhere even without the audio, just so the examiners can see that I did make this attempt and I did attend this interview and we did all this stuff, and I just couldn't use it because it'd go completely to waste if no one ever knew that I ever went there, because I'm putting in so much effort to try and get as much footage as possible captured so I can make a really good product, and I don't want anyone to think that I've not gone out my way and done that. So that's what I'm going to take from this experience, that's what I'm taking out today. I'm just going to get some sleep, I'm going to stop being angry at myself. That's not going to help anything because I am really devastated by what happened. It was such a good interview, and I've lost it all. And as a creator and as a student that's not got a lot of opportunities, losing a big opportunity like that can be very degrading. I'm going to not let it bother me as much as what it is doing. I'm going to pretend it didn't happen, I'm going to do my best to fix it. As soon as it's fixed, or if I know it's not going to be fixed, I can let go of it and I can move on and figure out what I'm going to do next. So hopefully that's where we go from this, and tomorrow will be a better day. Well, I've got interviews booked for next Wednesday, I believe, at least. Hopefully we might get some more before then. I'm hoping these interviews go ahead on Wednesday. We're still in the process of figuring it out, but I'm in contact with a lot of people at the minute. Let me just think. I've got a student paramedic lined up. I've got one of my teacher's friends who won't be able to do it for a few weeks, but I know she's going to try her best to get that for me. I'm finding people from everywhere, and hopefully these will all be opportunities where I can go and film, learn from these mistakes, be able to learn more how to use my equipment better, and to feel more prepared when I go onto the footage, to the locations to gather the footage, and it'll just be a better experience, or maybe because today hasn't gone so well. But I think that's the process. Not everything's going to go great, and it's a real wake-up call to know that it's not going to go the way I want all the time, and I'm going to live with it and I'm going to learn from it. So hopefully next time I come back and speak to you, I'll be able to give an update on what's going on with this situation, if I will be able to use the footage, or if I'm going to have to find a complete replacement interview candidate. Until then, bye.
Hi and welcome to another production log video. This, I would say, is probably the first successful day of filming, at least, after the incident with the interview going wrong yesterday. So I've got to say today definitely went a lot better. I had 3 interviews originally this morning. That turned into 2 with my morning interview. Unfortunately, I had to rush off to do something with her children, so she has rescheduled her interview for Friday in the morning. So now I just had 2 interviews today. I had one at 1 PM and I had one at 6 PM. I think on the most part it were quite a lot successful. I made sure that the microphone was switched on this time, which I didn't do before. So we'll just have a quick journey of what happened during these interviews and how I prepared for them and such. So for the first interview that I did, that was at Asheville Medical Practice with Dr. Andy Mills. He is a GP there, he's worked there for quite a long time, so it was a really good interview to be able to go and do with him. Originally I thought we would be filming perhaps inside in his office or something, but it was actually just a sort of sealed off area behind the building where some of the staff can go outside to have their lunch with some picnic benches. It wasn't as ideal as being in the surgery because obviously there's a better background footage there, there's more room for filler shots. I think this is where I've had my biggest downfall today. Even though the audio didn't record when I did go and interview Joe, I got lots of filler shots, and when I go and refilm with her, I'll be able to recycle all those filler shots still and just record the new audio footage and the footage to go with that. With these two interviews I've done today, because the first one was outside and the second one was actually in my garden and they just came for an interview, there wasn't many opportunities for any sort of filler shots, especially not like with Joe I did quite a lot of close-ups on like a face and of somebody drinking coffee. I couldn't do any of those things because of the area that we were in. I did try with Andy and I got a secondary camera, which was my phone, and I had a little phone tripod stand which I positioned my phone onto to try and get a different angle of him. This wasn't what I set out to do originally. What I really wanted to do with that camera was to put it on me and record me doing the interview. However, because that wasn't possible, and it's quite difficult actually for me to go filming on my own in all these different locations and film myself doing different things, I'm starting to begin at this point that maybe when I get to editing I will not have enough content of me walking my way through the product to be able to take that sort of style to the documentary. It'll be more just of the people I'm interviewing and I won't be on the face of the product like I initially wanted to, because I can't physically film myself without anyone else coming and helping me filming. And unfortunately there's just so many different places that I'll be going filming. I think I've got 7 interviews all at different times with different people, and it takes up quite a lot of time in a day that people need to spend doing their F&Ps, and there's not any other person that I can think of that is qualified to use the camera, that knows how to do the journalistic filler shots and positioning on the screen to actually get a good shot that I can use in my product. And you can try and explain to people how to do it, but unless they've had the proper teaching, it's very difficult for people to get what you want. So I am on my own for this, and I think I'm going to have to sort of try and find a contingency plan for how to edit it without having as much of me on the product as what I'd like. I did interview Andy, and I learned from yesterday. I used a Zoom mic, to record the audio. I put that underneath him so that I pick up anything nicely, and I also had my phone recording him from a different angle, which, to be fair, the angle that my phone was recording from wasn't a very good angle, and I think that's just due down to the basis that it was difficult because it was a very bad tripod. It's quite wobbly, it's not a stable sort of thing, so it's very difficult to position that and get a good shot like you can with a professional tripod and camera set. But anyway, that'll still work well for backing up as an audio, and I did do some test shots before I left, and I can document those as I go through the journey. I've got quite a few terrible shots in my bedroom and of me speaking into the camera to see the audio is working with the mics on, but the mic did work properly, and I rewatched all the footage back. It all went really lovely. The interview was really good, and in terms of the content that he was actually speaking, it were very useful to me. He spoke quite a bit about having to deal with difficult customers, not customers, patients, and particularly violent people. I think that's a very informative section to include in the documentary as to how people can negatively behave sometimes, and then also sort of his opinions on what people should do to look after the staff and help them have a better working environment. So I think that's generally what I'm going to centralise that interview on when I edit it into my product. Those were the answers that really stood out to me that I really liked and thought, I'm going to get those in the product. but as we're going through the reviews, I'll use that as well. So I'll just have to watch everything back and save the sections that I like to include in the documentary. I think the best approach to doing these interviews now is just to find something that I think everyone can explore one particular topic really well, and have everyone to do a completely different topic all the way through it. Originally, I wanted to have quite a few people doing lots of different sections and jumble them all together. I'm still going to try and do that so I can include interviews at multiple points through the documentary, but I am really struggling to find a certain documentary style that will fit with the footage that I'm collecting so far. It's quite different to what I've seen from the similar products that I've watched. I really wanted to do the style from the documentary I watched with, I think the journalist was called Alex, and she walked through the documentary, but it's very difficult to do that because she obviously had a camera crew behind her and I'm a solo sort of journalist. So if we're moving away from that, and then the other style is doing the montage, but I don't think my script is solid enough at the minute to piece everything together, because the interviews will literally determine the way the product has to go forwards, and there's not much that I can do for the product until all the interviews are done and I can start and make a solid script. I know what I want to cover, I know every sort of subject area that I want covered, but I'm really struggling in trying to visualise how it's all going to piece together. So I guess the main target for me is going to be to try and figure out, before I get into the interviews, what I want out of each interview, what topic I really want to focus in on them, and also trying to figure out how I'm going to structure all the different interviews I've got together, because at the minute I'm not quite sure on what I'm going to do for that. So the Andy Mills interview went really well. He was very cooperative. He couldn't do anything more for me, bless him. I took the release forms with me, signed the release forms, everything's all sorted, and I've uploaded all the footage onto the computer, ready for me to use. The only issue I am really having, which I really need to work on, is there are some... So as I said, I mentioned I put a secondary camera up to film from a different angle. I don't know how to upload the footage from my phone onto somewhere accessible, and also my phone is running out of storage, and I'm trying to delete these products. Is so long, I've done so much filming for like just one video. Unless I can move that video somewhere else and save it somewhere safe, I'll not be able to do any more filming on my phone, which I need to do every interview for. I used my mum's today kindly, and I don't know how to get that interview off her phone either. I don't want to end up losing the footage, because obviously I can't film another one until I've got that out of it, but I've tried uploading it to a computer. It won't play the videos, I can't see what file from my phone is which, and I can't email it over either. It's not loading the product. I don't know if it's a Wi-Fi issue, a data issue, but I think it's just because the products are so big. It's such a long video. They're all like 10 plus minutes worth of audio and video, and that's quite a hefty thing to try and move, so my phone's not really cooperating well with it. I'm going to have to get some advice from my teachers on how I'm going to be able to move this footage before I have to go into my next interview, so I don't lose it. All went very well for that. The only thing I want to try and make sure I can definitely do is be in a situation where I can set up a secondary camera that's on me, because I really do want to be able to be the on-screen journalist in this product, and I've not had the opportunities to be able to film myself properly, to be able to record me speaking the interviews, and also I've been finding it really difficult to word the questions that I want, because just in the heat of the moment in the interview, it's so difficult to phrase the questions exactly how you want to get the answer you want. I feel like I definitely need to just take a breather, re-go through all my product ideas and get a better understanding as to what I need to get out of these interviews before I go into them, because at the minute I feel like I'm in a bit of a grey area, and sometimes I'm second guessing myself. What do I actually need to ask this person? And they're looking at me, they're waiting for the question, I'm like, I don't know what to ask you, and I find myself waffling, and just the questions don't come out crisp and clear, and I explain myself and I try and piece together what I'm thinking in my head, and then you can see a look of confusion on their face because they don't really know what you're trying to ask them, and then only at the end of me trying to frantically explain what it is that I mean kind of place together a clear question that ties it all together. I really think I need to be more clear on what questions I need to ask the person, which I've been struggling with because the people I've interviewed so far, I don't know anything about the professions, I don't know much about the jobs that they do, the responsibilities. So it's really difficult to tailor the questions to the person and figure out what's going to suit them best in that interview to get the best out of that interview possible. I feel like the way I can go forward is by chatting with the person a bit more in advance about what they do and to get a feel for what sort of things they might be better off asking, and make sure that each different person has got specific questions based on the knowledge I found out about them and the job role that they have. The interview this afternoon went quite similar. Again, definitely need to find a better situation where I can get more filler shots, because as well I think it'll spoil it if I don't get equal amount of filler shots for all of them. For the actual medical practice, I could film signs, I could film the outside of the building, and I got some cars driving by, and I got an on-screen footage shot of me walking towards the camera saying a sentence just to try and tie everything in together. But with the interview with Lee, it was in my garden. There was no scenery to film, there were no signs, there were no cars driving past, you know what I mean? I was very limited with what I could work with there, rather than just interviewing him. The interview was really good. I got some really good quality content, and he did get quite emotional in the interview, which is what I really want to find out. The things that went wrong with this interview were that I managed to switch the microphone on and forget to plug it into the camera. So I was not getting quality audio from the big microphone, which I really wanted to do. Instead, it was just being recorded through the camera, and upon watching it back over the camera, it doesn't seem like there's much wrong with it. It seems like it's a relatively fine audio that's been played. You can see it, you can hear him clearly. There is a bit of background noise that I don't want there, with like birds and stuff, but it was completely unavoidable. Obviously, we can't go inside, we can't find a soundproof room. We've got to be out in the open, it's COVID restrictions, and not a lot of doctors will want to film anywhere other than in the outer open. So it's a lot of background noise. I really need to try and find better areas, but you can't get rid of birds from the outside, you know what I mean? And I need to really double check and make sure that everything's plugged in and connected, because I'm just such a klutz when it comes to technology and film and things like that. So yeah, very difficult sort of situation at the minute. And another thing that went wrong is the battery. The batteries, I don't really know how the batteries work on the camera, but when I plugged the batteries in before the interview, I checked them, all the battery lines were all the way full up to the top, and then halfway through my interview with Lee, after setting off the interview out with a full bar battery pack allegedly, it cut out after about 10 minutes. It was quite a long interview. We probably got 45 minutes worth of audio on the boom mic from what I was recording, and so it was quite a bit of a kick in the teeth, because it were some quite interesting stories were being told when the camera shut out, and then I replaced the battery, and 5 minutes later I heard it again, another click, the battery went out, even though that battery said it had half charge left. And I just don't think the batteries really represent how much charge they have in them on the camera screen. So I'm trying to figure out how I can make sure that the batteries are actually full, and I'm trying to recharge them as well, which isn't really working very well, because I don't think they're charging up properly. They've been on for hours and they don't seem to be charging. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. So I'm definitely going to have to try and talk to Daryl and figure out what I'm doing about these batteries and why it's not giving me how much charge they've actually got on the screen. Or maybe I just don't understand how it works properly, and how I recognise if the battery's charged or flat. It did cause an issue for me, because the second time the battery cut out, he was in the middle of a really tearful, and he was about to cry. He was tearing up, it was watering in his eyes, and he was getting really emotional. And then the camera cut out, and that would have been such an amazing sort of thing to include, and that it ruins it. It's like, it's not a good thing to try and have to recover from. Someone's spilling the heart out to you and you don't really know what you're doing. The camera's not working anymore, you have to run away to try and find new battery and fumble around it's a less than ideal situation, and I really think that that might be a downfall of this interview. But overall, I did get lots of great content. The shot was framed really well. If I had a few filler shots, it wouldn't matter as much if the camera cut out, because I'd be able to sort of mask it. But I don't think there's much I can do to mask it, so it's just going to have to be a case of doing some good editing skills and a bit of a miracle. But I really think that the interviews today, the people that I interviewed were really good. Loved working with them, loved talking to them. They knew completely what they were talking about, very professional, and there'll definitely be a lot of things I can get out of it. They both lasted quite long, so I'll definitely have to do a lot of work in cutting down and trying to pick out the best bits, because there were a lot of ramble and a lot of good things, so it's about trying to distribute it now. They're all saved onto the computer, so moving forwards, making sure microphones are plugged in. Microphones, audio are literally my worst nightmare. At least I actually had all the different backup audios, as long as I make sure I've got them backup audios every time, and that the camera's working, and that I've got backups of every material that I get. I should be alright no matter what interview I go to. I'm already having to refilm the first one, and I'm not looking forward to that. Microphones, checking the batteries. I don't really know what's going on with the batteries. I need to make sure that I walk into an interview confident that I have enough battery to not have to cut the interview halfway out to switch the battery over into a new one. That might be down to the quality of the batteries, or if they've been misused by previous owners and they're just not working up to scratch anymore. So checking the batteries, trying to find a quiet space if possible. Also trying to find somewhere which has got a better background. I'm quite cautious that some of the backgrounds in the interviews aren't very good, but it'll be fine in the end. Hopefully I can blur the background. It's the one's got like a garden fence. It's just like a stone wall. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. Hopefully I can sort of blur it, change the focus and make it so it's not quite so obviously just a garden wall behind him. I was going to use a green screen, but I honestly don't know how to use a green screen, and I weren't going to mess up the interview trying to fumble around with a green screen behind him. So that's where we're at today. Tomorrow is Thursday, and it's going to be a busy bit. I think I've got 3 interviews booked tomorrow. I've got a lady where I'm going into the college building, so I need to find out what I need to do to allow her to come into the building, including providing her with COVID tests and any sort of plans for how I need to deal with her. Maybe only certain rooms I can take her in. I need to find out that sort of information, for example. So we've got that one, and then I am doing the refilming later on that night for the interview that didn't go well the first time. And then in the afternoon, I'm trying to think who it is that I'm going to see. A lady called Jackie. She works for the hospital. However, I'm having a little bit of issues with her because she had to reschedule so many times. A lot of things coming up. She's a very busy lady, and at the minute, iPhone storage not very good. Really need to sort that out as well tomorrow. Make sure I've got the storage that I need to do any sort of filming or audio recording on my phone, because it's just not working at the minute. And it's really difficult to try and free iPhone storage if you've ever tried it. So that's the things that I'm going to be working on tomorrow. Hoping that all these interviews go really well, but we'll see in the morning. And here's for hopefully 3 more successfully.
Hi, and welcome to another production log. So today, again, I had 3 interviews booked today with different people for the production part of my project. And sadly, one of the ladies I was interviewing couldn't make it to her interview. She had to pick up a night shift, so I wasn't able to go and interview her. I still had an interview in the morning with a lady called Diane. She was an NHS nurse. Her interview I conducted by fetching her into the college building and using the studios that we have in college. She had to do a COVID test, so I arranged that for her before she could enter the building. So we got all that sorted with the office and brought her into the building. She was a really lovely lady, and the interview went really well. She wasn't the best interviewer I've had overall so far, in the sense that she was very nervous. A lot of people that I've interviewed previously have been quite relaxed,
were able to communicate without speaking as quickly. She spoke really quickly, which I feel like that dragged away from the effect of some of the stories she was telling. She told a story that made her cry at one point, and it was a really emotional story. And usually when people tell stories like that, it's a natural thing. They'll speak quite slower, whereas she, because she was nervous, was speaking rather quick. So it was a great interview. Some of the things she said were really beneficial to the product. However, because she was talking so fast, it wasn't the best interview that I've done yet, but I really enjoyed speaking with her and I learned quite a few things. In terms of what could have gone better, what I didn't realise, I completely forgot about booking out a studio in the college building before I went to go and do this interview, because every other one I've done I've been focusing on getting the transport to travel to them, because I've been meeting people in the houses and in the gardens, and I had an interview that came to my back garden. I went to outside doctors, so it was, I'd not arranged one in college yet, so it slipped my mind that I had to book a room to use to interview her in. Luckily there was a room, but it wasn't the most ideal location. The room I wanted to use was occupied, and that was the one I had planned out where I was going to seat her and everything, and it's quite a last minute job trying to figure out where I was going to set her. However, the interview framing was really well. She did move a few times while she was like shuffling around and setting up, because the interview lasted quite a few minutes, but overall it was positioned rather well. The only thing that I feel like I really need to improve on is at the end of the filming, I asked everyone to do a montage of saying thank you to the audience for everyone that I've interviewed through the product, and I asked her to do the close-up with the face. I had the camera in her face, and I asked her to say thank you into the camera, and she did it. It looked really good on the camera. However, I just adjusted the camera so it wasn't blurry on her face, and when I re-looked at the footage once I've got home, I realised that that must have not been as clear as what I thought it was when it looked on the camera, because it was very blurry on her face, and it's not a clear picture at all. The picture quality is really bad. Hopefully, because it's such a really short clip, people won't notice. I've not seen it on a big laptop screen yet. It might make a lot of a difference when it's on a laptop screen. I've only watched it through the camera, but when I get back to it, hopefully it'll look a lot better than what it does on the little camera, because it is very blurry. So I really need to focus on making sure the camera is either set onto autofocus, which I didn't realise was a setting, but I've learnt that today, that there is an autofocus button, and also a stabiliser switch on the camera lens, which I wasn't aware of. So those are two things that I've learnt, which is brilliant, and I'll make sure that I use those, and to make sure the shots are quite stable for next time I use the camera. That interview went really well. The lady at 2 o'clock cancelled, so I got in contact with some people from a care home today that one of my teachers referred me to. They deal with quite a lot of elderly people and work in caring. They were very up for doing an interview. They would have let me like film around the premises and get some really good filler shots. So I emailed them and asked them to see if it would be possible for me to come today. Unfortunately, they were in a meeting, so I couldn't have gone and seen them until next Tuesday, which is a little bit too close to me needing to be editing everything together and to be finally having a finished product. I have got an interview the day after that, which I couldn't do anything earlier, and I don't really want to be still focusing mainly on filming by that point. So I said to her, thank you for the offer, you know, I'm not sure that I could make it on that date because I've got a work shift as well. But I might take you up later if I've lacking filming. I think it's really good that I've been in contact with these people though, because now if I'm missing some filming and I have some gaps in to make up some time for the initial timeline that I set out, the length of the product, I can go and then try and interview them, squeeze it in, and it'll still be a really good interview, really beneficial to the product. If I am missing anything in the end, it's quite a good contingency plan, especially if some of the data I've got corrupts, because I think I've got enough with what I've got at the minute. I've got 7 booked in, most of them are already done, so after today I've only got 3 more left to do, and with what I've got so far and what I'm hoping to get, I'll definitely have enough unless something goes wrong with some more of the audio or video products that means that I can't use that interview in the end. So after I'd got in contact with them and it turned out that I couldn't go, I travelled straight from the college building where I was just finishing off some researching and other bits and bobs that I need to tie up loose ends with. I went straight to go and do the refilming for the Joe Pons interview, that was the interview that we spoke about a while back, where I didn't turn the microphone on because I didn't realise that that was a step that I needed to take. So this time, like I've been doing with all the previous interviews that I've done, I made sure that I've been using the backup microphone, making sure I do a test shot and play the audio. And I went back to go and see her. She was really lovely, she was really helpful, and I'd apologise to her for having to go back and film again. It didn't take up too much time. Last time we did loads of filler shots, I filmed in loads of different places, and the good thing about it is that those are still transferable to what I'm doing at the minute, because they don't really need audio behind them other than the audio from what I've just recorded in the interview. So those are all fine to use without sound behind them. It doesn't matter that there was no audio on those. And now the short footage that I've got with her re-saying some of the questions that I asked her, I can still use that interview and the filler shots behind it, and it went really well. The camera and the audio turned out great. The shot, I don't think it was framed as well as the first one, which I'm a little bit more disappointed about. The first one I was really happy with it, I was really pleased with how it looked. It looked really professional, the way I positioned her and the way she was looking. I think because I had to do it again, it was a slightly different positioning, so I don't think it was framed as well as the first one. So I'm really just going to have to work on framing the interviews a little bit better. I think that might have been something to do with the fact that earlier on, after I finished my interview in college today, the base of the camera got screwed on too tight to the camera, so it was a lot more difficult for me to position the camera because I couldn't move it on and off as freely because it was all tightened up too well. But overall, it was a really good interview. A lot of really good things came out of it. I think, just linking back to my research, the interviews and the shot types that I did research into as part of my secondary research have really come into play over the past few days while I've been framing the interviews. I know this one might not have gone as well as what I'd have hoped it for, but the research that I've did on how to frame interviews properly and how to sit people is really, I've been using that a lot recently to make sure that the camera shots look professional, and that when we finish off with the product, they're going to be sat in a way that you'd see in a professional documentary. They're going to have the same amount of close-up on screen. It's going to look really good. So it was really useful to do that research, to be able to put it into practice, see how it puts into practice at this point, and I can see different ways to sit them and position them. I've been switching from side to side because I want to get a bit of differentiation for when I edit it all together, so I don't go from one interview after the other interview with them all sitting in the same place. I've been alternating which way around people are sitting so that I can edit them together in a way that makes them look different, even though they're the same sort of shots, just with them sat either side. And yeah, I got home, I uploaded all of the footage onto my laptop. I think it's really, really important that I keep doing what I'm doing, where I'm interviewing. Once I finish an interview, I'll take the laptop home straight away, I'll plug it straight into the computer and transfer all of the things on the SD card into the computer, so I've got them on my memory stick ready for me to use for editing. They're all in different folders. All the different interviews I've done are all in different places in accordance to which interview it is that I've filmed, and what the shots for, which section the shots fit on under the interview that I've got. So I've got a name for every different person that I've interviewed, and I've put all the videos from each different interview into them files, so it's all nice and organised. A task that I really want to work on, a target for next whenever I get round to it, is to rewatch every single clip individually. There's a lot of them, and to name them all, because when I get onto the editing process, I'll have to insert every document into it, and you can't see a little thumbnail, you can't see which every video is as clearly. So if they're all just VM185, you don't know what video that is. So if they're all named and organised really nice and neatly, I'll be able to know exactly which each video is, to put it straight into the editing software and put it all in the sequence that I want, and be able to identify the clips that I'm looking for really easily. So I think it's important that I do that over the next few days. I've got quite a lot of filming still booked in to do, to focus on first, so I'm not sure if I'll get a chance to doing it just yet. But overall, I think it's a really successful day in filming. Being able to recapture the footage that I lost originally is quite a breath of fresh air. It shows that I've been able to fix a mistake that I've made, which is an important part of the developing process, is being able to, oops, this didn't go so well, but I fixed it, it's fine, we've got all the footage back, and now all the filler shots are usable. So it's been a quite successful day, even though I did lose one of the 3 interviews that I had originally. Hopefully she'll be able to be interviewed at a later date, and we'll see if they go as well as what today's gone. Just let me double check. I've got my production log video here. I'm going to make sure that I've listed everything that I need to do in the videos and not skipped anything out. All the different tasks I've carried out, things that went well, the framing of the interviews, and the questions that were asked were really intense. I feel like I connected really well with the guests that were speaking. When people got emotional, just the facial expressions that I was giving to them as well, nodding, being empathetic, showing them that I was engaging with the conversation they were in so that they didn't feel like they were being ignored. You know, I was really trying to get with them on an emotional level to make them feel comfortable, safe, and want to carry on telling a vulnerable story. So I think that went really well, is the engagements that I had with the people that I were interviewing. The issues, obviously, were missing out on an interview, and the framing of the second interview weren't quite as good as the first time I filmed it, but it still went really well. And how did you solve these issues? So the biggest issue was from the other day when I filmed the interview wrong, and the way I solved it was by explaining the situation to her nicely and trying to arrange a day where I could come back and still get the audio that I needed. And I'm a bit cheeky, being like, can I come back and do it again? Can I waste some more of your time? But I solved it. You know, communication is key really when it comes to sorting out interviews, and not being afraid to ask people, this is what I want, please can you do it for me? And what am I going to do next? I'm going to carry on, firstly, with all the interviews that I've still got scheduled and focus on them, and then I'm going to organise all of the shots and name them all individually so that it's easy to locate when I go to editing in the next few weeks. So that's all for today. Hi and welcome to another really positive production log video. Today has been another day of filming and doing a lot of hands-on things in the stage of the actual production process. I have done 2 interviews today, so that's 6 interviews in total that we've completed so far, not including the one that went wrong that we refilmed. 6 interviews that I can work really well with. Today I interviewed a student paramedic named Hannah, and I also interviewed a lady who works at a mental health hospital, an NHS worker. She's been there for, I think she's mentioned she had been there for 13 years. So 2 really strong and different interviews. I think the best thing that went well with these interviews is the fact that they are so different, and the people that I've been interviewing all work in really different professions. I have had quite a lot of nurses and doctors, but so far we've got students, nurses, people that work in critical care, people that are GPs, people that work for safeguarding, and now mental health. I mean, it's such a wide range. I really think we're getting a really good variety in terms of the people that I've covered in this documentary. So that's the most positive thing, is that I've now got 2 completely different interviews from everyone else that I've interviewed all together, and to get their insights in their professions and how different they are, it's going to be really beneficial to the product, and it'll allow me to get much different stories. It's very windy today, so you'll just have to excuse the humming of the windows with the wind. But the first interview was with a student paramedic, and she was really cooperative when it came to doing the filming. She was very nervous, bless her. She wasn't a big camera person, but she really wanted to support me. She really wanted to support the product. So I think the thing that went well with her interview is that I asked her to make sure that when she replied to the questions that I were asking her, in case I had to edit out my voice and I wasn't going to record me saying the questions, if she could just repeat back to me, reword the questions in the beginning of her answers so that her answers made sense without needing me to ask the questions for her.
the lady that I interviewed at college called Diane, she didn't do this very well. I think she forgot about doing it, and she wasn't too familiar with how to do it properly. But Hannah really took this on board. She framed all of the questions so they could stand individually, and she taught not for a rather long amount of time, but enough so that I had a really good answer without having to try and cut through a lot of waffle, which I found a lot of people talk for a very long time, and she didn't talk for quite so long as what other people did, and that was, I think, really good in that sort of sense, that I won't have to cut through not important points. She got straight down to the important things and very opinionated. Her interview wasn't quite as emotional as some of the other ones I've done. It was quite more a perspective of getting into the industry. She thought it was difficult. I told her when we started that I was mainly focusing on if the job was how she expected it was going to be when she set off doing it and why she wanted to do it. I think it's really important that we see how young some people are that are working on actual jobs with people, and also she was working, you know, some 12-hour shifts, maybe longer, for no pay because there are placements, and a lot of people are in this where they are volunteers essentially for the NHS. They're saving people's lives, doing this hands-on first aid and administering care to people for literally nothing at all, and I think that's a really good point to explore in the documentary, and that's what I really loved getting this out of the interview. I got a lot out of it. What didn't go so well with this interview was she has children. Her son was present at the interview, and I asked him very politely, bless him, to try and be quiet, but you know, when you explain to a child what quiet is, he was like, I'll try and be really quiet. He was very noisy. He was opening and closing the doors. He came and he got me a drink thinking he was being really nice. And he was like, oh, I just want to tell you I've got you a drink. And this was quite disruptive to the interview. So now I paused the interview a second. I'm like, Alfie, I'm really, really sorry, but can you just try and be really quiet because I can hear you closing the doors. So just try and be really, really quiet for me for a minute. And I tried communicating, but obviously when you're working with children it's difficult. I did see beforehand if he wanted to go and play in his room for a bit, but he was really adamant that he wanted to watch the interview and he wanted to learn from it for his own experience. So I was happy to let him do that. However, in future I think that I should perhaps not be so lenient with children because they are children, as it did cause a lot of disruptions in the interview, and hopefully, I can't quite remember where the disruptions occurred, if they were within the answers and the sections that I specifically did want to use. If they are, then that'll be catastrophic to those sections, and I won't be able to, I'll either have to keep in the fact that there's noise behind it, or I'll have to try and edit around it. And if it's something that's really good and it's got noise over the top of it, that'll really drag away from. But I guess in a way it's not too much of a big issue because it is a real life documentary. This is the real life of NHS workers, and she's got kids, you know. Children are noisy, that is real life, and hopefully it'll be a positive thing in the documentary and showing the real life aspect of it rather than something that isn't real life. I worked really hard with the lighting on this one because she was sat in front of a window. There are a lot of people that sit in front of windows and the light shines through them just because that's the only place that people sit. So I worked really hard to get lights on, to get the lighting right so you could see her clearly. I don't think this interview was framed quite as well as what some of the other interviews that I've done are. She was a bit more central in terms of where she was sat because she moved a little bit. So she wasn't quite to the left hand side where I tried to position her, and I think this might have dragged away from the aesthetic of the interview. Hopefully it's still really good because some interviews they are slightly more in the middle, you know, you can't help it. Not every interview is going to be framed quite as perfectly. And even if she is more in the middle, it's still a little bit more differentiation from some of the other interviews that I've done. So I will have quite a lot of different positionings and where they're all sat. So that's a really positive thing. So yeah, the only thing that I really criticised myself over for both of the interviews that I did today is while the audio came out really well, which is a really positive thing, when I did the interview with Hannah, I double checked the microphone. The first one I used was a lapel mic and the audio came out just so loud and I didn't know how to alter the levels on the microphone. So I ended up using the bigger microphone, which I've had some trouble with before, so I was glad that it worked okay. However, if the audio were to have gone really spoiled, I got the boom mic out and I sat it down next to her, but I didn't want to record it too early, so I set everything up
having already got the boom mic out, a Zoom mic, sorry, and I forgot to press play on it, so I did the whole interview without the Zoom mic recording. I did this again with the second interview that I did, because it just got to the point where I've not had an issue with audio for so long, and doing the checks and hearing the audio is working fine. When I do realise midway through the interview that there is no secondary audio, I don't want to move, I don't want to disturb the interviewee from the story that they're telling, to be like, oh, I need to go set this interview up, just so I make sure I get as much audio as possible backed up. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm going to improve on from this, because it was a really negative thing that I didn't, in both instances that of the interviews that I recorded today, I didn't have the Zoom mic recording secondary audio. I really could do with a second camera, because I don't have the means to record myself twice. I was using my phone on a little mini tripod, but the tripod is so small I can't actually put my phone to the level where I want it to be able to record me wherever I'm sitting. I want to record me asking them the questions, but I can't. I've got to sit in a specific place so that they can look in my direction, so that they don't look the wrong way on the camera and the interview turns out really badly. But usually where I'm sitting isn't a place where it's aesthetically good looking at me. It's not a good place to record me. I will not look good on the shots of me filming me in the place where I'm sitting to get them to look in the right position, if that makes sense. So to begin with, when I did the interview with Joe Pons, I recorded myself separately trying to ask the questions, but that doesn't work well either, because I can never remember the questions that I've asked them, because they're specific to the interview rather than ones that I've already got prepared. I have ones that are pre-prepared, but I've found that normally I don't even stick to those questions because they're not as relevant as what a different question would be when I've got into the interview with them. So not knowing what to say means that I can't then record myself in a different position saying the things that I want to say to them. So I really think that at this point I've got so little footage of me with the interviewees and such. I'm not going to be on screen as much as I thought I would be during this product. I really wanted to walk the way through the interview, but my on-screen presence has been very minimal because I don't have a second camera to frame myself properly, and because my phone, I've got no phone storage. I can't film on my phone. It just cuts out and I can't alter it. I can't then transfer the audio, the footage that I've got off my phone. I've been finding it really problematic. I can't email the files because the files are too big, but I can't also then not record half the interview to make sure the files are small enough, and then I don't really know how to go on. I just decided that at this point I'm not going to be recording myself anymore, trying to record myself doing the questions in the interviews, because if I record my phone I can't move the footage anywhere. I also can't frame it properly because I'm usually not sat in a good position, and I also can't get to the right height because the tripod's so small. I know another group that are working in a pair, they have been given 2 cameras to be able to set up multiple angles, which I have only got one. I've only got one tripod, one professional camera, and that means that I can't record as much as what I would like to. I'm not being able to record as many filler shots as what I want to either, because people don't want me to film them doing random stuff. They're not comfortable with it, and they're also the ones that I've been filming outside. I don't physically have the time, and there's nothing to film. There is nothing that I can film as filler shots in some instances. In some situations there are just no physical opportunities to get filler shots. I found that yesterday I didn't get any filler shots at all. With the second interview, the reason why I didn't get filler shots was because she was really rushed. She was actually heading out to a shift when I managed to get to interview her. Jackie had rescheduled her interview 5 times, so I wasn't prepared to say, can I come back another day and get more footage when she ran out the door for work. I just had to leave it at that. She gave us lots of really, really good experiences. A lot of it was really emotional. She told stories of some really difficult things she's had to do, about being attacked by people, stuff that were quite extreme, and I'm very fortunate to have found someone that has had such extreme experiences, because if everyone just had sort of very vague, boring stories to tell, the documentary wouldn't be as powerful as what it could be. So I'm very fortunate to get so much in-depth and some scary thoughts from her. She talked for so long though, I didn't get to ask too many questions because she spoke away for like half an hour, and I got probably 3 or 4 questions in there at most. As soon as she finished the story, she wanted to tell another story. She got really into it, bless her, but that did mean that I tried to make sure she answered all the questions that I wanted, but I definitely did get everything I needed out of that interview. One thing that didn't go the way I wanted was, at the end I asked everyone to record them saying thank you to everyone, and I asked her if she could say at the end, I've got a lady that says, I just want to say a big thank you. I've got loads of people that go thank you, thank you, thank you, and to close it off I want someone that says, for everyone that's helped the NHS through this difficult period or supported it anyway, something like that, a very short sentence, to everyone that has supported the NHS. That's a short sentence, very short. And I asked her if she would like to say the very ending bit, and she said yeah, absolutely. So I recorded her saying that, and she didn't just say that. I asked her if she could say those words specifically, and instead she gave her own sort of statement, and it was so long. She went, oh, thank you to everyone that's helped us. And she waffled on a bit. It was a very long thing. It wasn't the few words, powerful sort of sentence that I wanted to get out of her. And because she said that rather than just saying thank you, I can't even get the next potential lady for interviewing to say thank you to everyone that's helped the NHS. Yeah, I can't just, she said thank you so merged in with the next word she was saying, I can't just cut out the bit where she says the rest of it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that, but I obviously can't refilm it. That means that the ending is probably going to be not as powerful as what I hoped it would be, because I really did want the close-ups in everyone's face going, I'd just like to say big thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone that supported us. And instead of having someone that says, for everyone that supported us, what I've got is a lot of waffle, and that's not quite where I wanted to go with it. So we're going to have to try and figure out a contingency plan to how I'm going to frame all of these things together to be able to make the ending still powerful without having just the simple sentence that I needed to make it as powerful as what it were. All in all, quite a successful day, lots of really good stories, lots of really good content. So what am I going to improve on? Making sure to get backup audio using the Zoom mic. Forgetting to do it is not good enough, you know. If something goes wrong now while I'm editing, I won't have enough time to record interviews if something gets corrupt, and backup audio is an absolute must. And even if everything goes well, you don't know what's going to happen to the audio. It might corrupt, it might not sound good. So I really do need to make sure to carry on using the Zoom mics as I should be doing. Second of all, making sure to get as many filler shots as possible. Even if they're not with the specific people, asking them to send in pictures, asking them to send in some content that I could use with them at work, to make sure that I get as many filler shots as possible in case I do need to work around the audio. I need to spend another day where I go out filming somewhere. I don't know whether it's going to be a hospital or something else, but I need as many filler shots as possible on people, because it's just, I'm very lacking in things other than interview filming, and that's not good at this stage. I really need more alternative content than what I've got. And yeah, I think I've got a lot of materials at this point. At this stage, we're looking really well for actually making and starting the editing process, other than getting just some filler shot content and some different things filmed in there. But all in all, really positive day. Few things to work on, which I will hopefully be filming another ladies interview next week, and we'll get everything that we need to be worked on addressed during that filming date. Before that, because that's not until next Wednesday, I am hoping to find filler shot footages and such, and just really find some appropriate background music is another thing that I need to work on before then. All the things, and I still need to gather extra materials, everything, to make sure I can make this documentary before I start making it on Wednesday. After I have finished with that interview, I should be able to go straight into editing, and to make sure I'm ready for that, over the next few days, hopefully I'll be filming some production logs where I have gathered extra materials, whether that is stock footage, archived footage, relevant pictures, inserted images and music, and that is what I'll be working on over the next couple of days before my next interview. Hi and welcome to another production log video. So today, as you already know, we're in the production process. So exciting times, and today was the day where I set my target for myself to collect relevant filler shots and archived footage, various bits and bobs, music, everything, all the little bits that need to be inserted into my product. I need to collect all those things today. Well, I keep saying today like it took me one day to do these things, but it didn't. This is just sort of the next section I've been working on. So there's been quite a few things that I've been quite successful with. There's been those where I've struggled with sort of this process. I think my main strength with this was getting into contact with my uncle, who does a lot of software design. He does a lot of technical editing, computer things, and he provided me with lots of different links to filler shot footage websites and to music websites, even stock images, all the different places that you could possibly think to get the best quality but still free footage from. The reason I did this was because when I started off trying to find out all of the different footage that I needed, a lot of the websites that I clicked on all required you to pay for videos. A lot of videos, it weren't even like a pound or like a few, like 50p to get per video. It was ridiculous. It was like £35 for the cheapest video, and that's obviously not something that I accounted for within my budgeting research, and it's not something that I could afford to spend all that money on shots that weren't even my own, which it's a little bit disappointing. I am at a point now where I realise that I'm not getting all the filler shots that I need. I'm going to need to have more to be able to build this product and still make sure everything's finely edited and it's still all runs smooth. There's no cuts in the middle of people speaking. That's not the thing that that's absolutely something that I don't want. So getting all these filler shots is literally the key in this process at this point. And I think it is a little bit difficult when you've not started editing and you can't really see what's relevant, especially with the shot list not being as specific with the middle of interviews as to what's going to be being said in the interviews and what I need to fill that little bit, which sentence is going to be edited. You can't write a script for an entire interview of what someone else is saying, so it's something that I have to decide on the spot. So the way I decided to approach this situation was just to open up all the different website videos, type in lots of relevant keywords like hospitals, doctors, nurses, paramedics, ambulances, A&E, first aid, patients, everything that you could think of to do with it. And I sort of worked through a sequence as to what shots did I say I wanted, what shots, do I need to collect, what I haven't been able to get during the filming, and sort of work my way through getting all the bits and bobs that I need. So there is a website and it's called Pexels. It's an amazing website. It's one thing that I've noticed from website to website, which is very frustrating, is that on Pexels it doesn't take very long to download a video. It takes a few seconds, you download it into a collection, you can save it to your computer stick, and then that's there ready for you to use. For things such as I can't remember the names of the websites. Pexels is my favourite, but the other websites that I was using, there's two others for free filler footages. They took a lot longer to download one piece of footage and a lot more storage space with it. I think they might have been higher resolution, but you couldn't tell the difference, and also it was, it took far too long to download just a single image. I spent a lot of time twiddling my thumbs for the few bits that I did get off there, so I decided to try and mainly stick to Pexels where I could, because this was the most appropriate. There was lots of different things that I could have got off there. I know when I compared my similar products, there was a lovely scene with a rainbow to represent the NHS, and I decided that I wanted to end my product with the rainbow to symbolise the NHS and sort of like an uplifting ending. Happy days are coming, rainbow, beautiful imagery,
it's sort of a resolution sort of scene. So I found the scenes that I knew that I wanted to include and some of the footages for it, such as the rainbow scene, and I've got all those saved to the website. I've got an account for it, and it's saved into a little folder titled FEP. So when I go to start editing, when I go to start editing, they're all saved in a file, and I can drag and drop those into my memory stick and then import those straight into the editing software that I'll be using to add as filler shots, and obviously then they can be edited down. It's very useful because it means that I don't have to download everything straight away and need to use my memory stick for shots that I might potentially not use. I can save hundreds and hundreds of shots. I have saved many shots, and scrolling for just all the different things that I thought I could use that. I'll save that, I'll put that to one side. It might be useful. One thing that I have sort of made the mistake of in the past is thinking I've not got enough. I needed to have got more footage. You can't have too much. You can have not enough, but you can't have too much footage, and that's why I went absolutely crazy with finding bits and bobs that I can use to piece this together if everything else goes pear-shaped. And I think that was my main strength, is making sure that I had everything that I needed, so I was completely prepared for the editing process, completely prepared for the production of this product, because if not, everything would have just crumbled before I even started trying to make it. In terms of music, that was really hard without hearing what the interviews were going to sound like. I decided, most things are going to be really traumatic, most things are going to be really sad, so just to find as much variations of sad music as possible. I knew that I wanted to make sure that I could keep things really slow. I didn't want the pace to go too fast, especially when people are telling us a story that can somewhat be traumatic to them. I want to make sure that it's like sad, soft piano, soft beats flowing on from each other, and that calm isn't too it's discreet, it's not too in your face, here's music. So I spent a long time listening to different tracks, and even tracks that I wanted to use the middle and not the not the beginning or the end, and not any of the middle bits. Saving all those and just naming those, like music 1, music 2, music 3, just so I can listen to the ones that I decided were very beneficial. A lot of the music tracks last for quite a few minutes, so that's always positive, that I'm definitely not going to run out of music. And music's the easiest thing to sort of collect, because it's a track. The track do last so long that you only need to find 4 or 5 tracks, and you've got enough to cover you for the entire interview, or all the different interviews that you've got, all the different bits of the documentary. So that is really good. I think what went wrong, there's not much that you can go wrong with when sort of collecting shots, other than in terms of collecting the historical footage that I wanted to collect was really difficult. There is no stock footage on historical sort of shots. I wanted to insert pictures of not pictures, but videos of old hospitals, people running around, doing different bits and bobs in hospitals, and it's very difficult. I had to go onto YouTube, and I had to use an MP4 converter to convert someone else's video footage that I was hoping wasn't copyrighted. I made sure that I didn't use anything that was from a TV company, that wasn't anything from the BBC, because everything BBC is copyrighted and they need permissions. I tried to use things that were more discreet and looked like things that footage that was on YouTube but wasn't actually owned by anybody. Hopefully this is the case when it comes to it, which I'll find out when I go to upload my product to YouTube, because it will turn around and it'll say copyrighted footage used in this video. All the stock footage is completely uncopyrighted, so I've not got an issue with it there. But in terms of the historical footage, it is difficult to find historical footage that isn't copyrighted, because it's all someone else's. That you can't film your own historical footage at the end of the day. So that's a bit disappointing, but we have got some, so we'll just put in what we've got and hope for the best that it isn't a copyrighted piece of work. So yeah, I'm feeling very confident now. I've got all the bits and bobs that I need to go into the editing process. I will probably have to go back. I'll have to find more. There'll be bits that I've not got, but that I've got the websites all at my disposal now. I've been in contact with someone that if I do need to get more, it's very easy for me to locate. I've got lots of different options for where I can locate things from, including doing what I did with the historical footage and going back to YouTube and just MP4 converting it. It's really hard to find an MP4 converter that works that I have found. So good luck if I try to do that one again. So everything done and dusted for this aspect of the project. Very positive, not many negatives to go with this one, other than the historical footage being quite difficult to find and having to, use quite a lot of different, watch a lot of different things to get the ones that I want. So now, I don't even know what targets I set for myself for tomorrow. I think just moving on with all the filming bits now, making sure all the rest of the stuff's ready for editing together. Editing is going to be the lengthiest process from now on, I think. Once I've got a few interviews scheduled over the next few weeks, and I'm just going to work on conducting all those, getting all the filming that I need, carry on trying to find permissions, because I still haven't got permissions from hospitals, which is quite disappointing. Just still going to try and get into filming in a hospital, and just hoping for the best with all the interview filming over the next couple of weeks. So, disappointing news for this production log video, another not very positive one. Unfortunately, the last interview that I was waiting to conduct has cancelled on me, because even though we scheduled this interview a few weeks ago, she sent me a message a few days ago saying, "Oh, I'm afraid I'll not be able, I might not be able to, I might have to postpone it because I've not got the right, someone's informed me at work that I'd need some sort of permission to be able to conduct this interview," which I don't know why she didn't know that before, if she didn't need permissions, but that's just the thing that we're rolling with at the minute, and I just asked her, if she could just keep me updated, contact the people for permissions. I asked her if I could have the people to try and contact them for permissions to be able to interview this lady, because she did seem really willing at first to do the interview, but now I'm just a bit in two minds whether or not she actually wanted to speak with me, and that's sort of the reason why the interview didn't go ahead, because she said she's waiting for someone to get back to about whether or not she can do it, and she just sort of stopped replying after that point. I kept asking her, is it going to go ahead, have you found anything else? And she was very reluctant to reply to a lot of things all of a sudden. So that's a bit of a shame, because after a few days of contacting her, trying to see if there were any progress on the, sort of the day of it, the day came of the interview, went and passed, couldn't do it. Day after came and passed. The last sort of day that I could really do for filming, and at this point I was like, right, well, I've lost an interview, not been able to interview this lady, and while at this point I've got 6 solid interviews with lots of different people, I was still planning on getting that extra bit, I've got uses for everything that I've done, and I've still got, I want to support everything that I've got so far and get some different viewpoints. It wasn't critical that I went and found another interview, but I thought it was beneficial, because you can never have too much footage once again, and I am worried that I didn't have enough filler shot footage. A lot of the interviews I've had to film outside, so I haven't had the correct amount of filler shot footage that I want to edit each and every sort of section together. So last minute resort, we got into contact with a new place at the last minute. It was someone that my teacher recommended. One of her friends owns a care home in Ward Green. They are the sort of managers of it, they run it, they built it from scratch. It's a very lovely establishment, and they gave me the opportunity to be able to arrange to go down with them, film them, interview them about their experiences, which I think, this is sort of the best outcome of this situation, because although my interview cancelled on me and that wasn't able to go ahead, so I wasted my time, she wasted her time, and it brought a bit of panic out in me. We have managed to get to a point now where we're moving forwards. I went to Ward Green, interviewed 2 lovely ladies, so this is different from what I've done before, because not only is there 2 people on screen at one time rather than just one, which is a sort of like a different, it's a different camera shot, it's a different viewpoint. It was harder to set up. I'm not sure if I set it up in a professional way, to be honest, because
when you film in one person, you stick them to one side, and all the different, you know, filming styles that I researched into and that we've learnt about, I've only got one person in them, so I didn't really know how to approach doing 2 people, but I think the shot turned out alright. I just ended up sticking 2 at either side of the screens, face on, pretty straightforward, but looked effective, worked for me. I think it's, as a reflection point, in the future I would like to learn how to set up an interview that involves more than one person to make it look professional, because I realised I didn't have the research to allow me to know how to set up an interview in that situation, because obviously it wasn't something that I planned for. It was sort of a last minute whim to try and get some more footage, and it worked. It worked at the time, but maybe not in the future. As I want to progress, I want to learn more different ways to set up really good interviews. So that's a goal for the future, at least. And what else? So yeah, I went down to Ward Green. I met with these really lovely ladies. I explained to them what I was doing. We set up the interview. It all went really well. It definitely wasn't the best interview that I've filmed in terms of content, because although I got some good stories out of them, one of the ladies was really talkative. The other lady sort of stared down a little bit. She was like looking like this. She was looking towards the floor, and I stopped the interview to begin with, and I was like, oh, would you be able to speak a bit louder? I'll ask you one question, you know, I'll ask you both questions. Can you try and play off of each other a bit, rather than, because she wasn't answering anything. I didn't want an interview with some lady that you didn't know why she was there, because she was just staring down at the floor the whole time. So I think that's a really big strength for me, is, you know, having sort of the courage to try and readjust my interview and not just let people carry on doing something that doesn't work for my product. Even though I did feel a bit rude, you know, being like, you're not doing it right, you know, it's my product, you've got to take control, you've got to, you know, sort of show people how to do it in a correct sort of way. So I did that, and I was really proud of myself. It shows a lot of character development, and, you know, being able to take charge and produce something, and not to be scared of people. I felt a great responsibility to my product by communicating with my interviewees and being able to set up a really great interview. It wasn't positive in terms of some of the answers, because some of the answers were quite closed off. I did ask them to repeat questions back to me as if I weren't saying them, so that they would make sense on their own. A lot of answers they gave, they didn't manage to do this for me, so that was a little bit frustrating, but with, you know, we move forwards. And yeah, so just from now on, it's going to be in the editing process. Today I managed to get a lot of filler shots. There was a lovely outdoor area. Luckily for me, it was a really beautiful day. A lot, you know, blue skies, sunny, good lighting. There was some like nice shot of the signs. There was lots of like garden areas, bird baskets, flower beds, doors, signs. You know, they had a tree with a memorial of patients on it that died during the coronavirus pandemic. I got some nice up and down shots of that, zoom-ins of trophies and awards that they've got for being like the best care home in Barnsley, so various things like that. But one thing that I got from my market research was, if you can get the opportunity, follow people around with stuff they're doing with the day, and just record ordinary people doing ordinary things as filler shots. And I think I achieved this, you know, this feedback that I got from RTV very well as well. With this interview, I followed her around with the camera, the 2 of them, and got them pointing at documents. I was, you know, filing through filing cabinets, answering the phone, drinking cups of tea, various ordinary normal activities. I did demonstrate these skills when I went and interviewed Jo Pons and did the filler shots with her. But there was a lot more with this one, and from the first time I did it, I definitely showed a lot of development, and I was able to add a lot more content into it than what I did with the Jo Pons interview. So this was a really positive step. So all in all, really great. Even though some of the answers weren't as good, I've got a lot of content so far, and they did give me a lot of good stories that I will be able to use. So once I have these stories included, that's sort of everything after that point that I need to do. I don't need any more footage, most definitely, from any interviewees. And we're alright to use the filler shots that we've collected today and the additional bits, just to stick everything together and to not worry about the fact that I lost an interview. I feel like something that I've learned from this is to make sure that I check in advance with people when I have scheduled interviews far ahead, check in with them on the odd occasion, be like, oh, have you remembered about this interview? Is we still alright to go ahead? So people can't back out at me at the last minute and put me in a position like this again. So that's something that I'm going to develop on for in the next project that I do, making sure that I'm carry on checking in with interviewees and that they've not forgot, they've not scheduled something over the top of it, or that something like this happens where they don't have permission to go ahead with doing it. And it'll avoid that eventuality and give me the longer time to prepare something to replace them with if they can't go ahead with it, or to try and sort out permissions should they have needed it. So yeah, end of sort of the collection of everything that I need, and now the goal is just to start editing. Tomorrow I just really want to break down all of the interviews that I have filmed, and start watching through them all, reminding myself of everything that I've filmed and cutting out all the bad bits, making sure that all the good bits are left in, ready to properly get into this product and start editing a really solid production together. Hi and welcome to my first editing production log. So that's exciting. We've finally taken all the materials and we've moved into the editing process. Today I was just sort of working on all of the different footage that I've collected as part of my interviews. I've got a lot of interviews. I totally up and I've got about 8+ hours worth of interview footage. So it's just sort of my aim for today were just to cut all the footage down into the best bits of the interviews so that they were all prepared to insert into the product when I've laid the foundations for it at a later stage. I wanted to get rid of all the bad bits. That was my main goal, is just to make sure that everything that was there was usable footage, no waffle, none of the bits of me speaking over the top, no bits where they either said, oh, I don't want to include this bit, but I'll just tell you while we're still on film. You know, there were occasions like that where people were like, this is confidential information, so cut them bits out. I made sure none of those bits were in. I made sure that any mistakes were cut out, and I made sure that it was really finely edited down to the sort of the very millisecond. And what I found the most difficult thing to be today is a lot of people's sentences sort of joined on together, but I didn't want the following sentence, but they were so quick to move into the next sentence it was really difficult to finally edit and stopping. The words were like essentially joined together. You had to be really precise, but I think I executed it really well. I think the way that I managed to get the fine editing cuts was really skillful. I demonstrated a lot of skills by being able to sort of make everything so precise. And just doing this now, it's going to get more familiar with everything that you rewatching everything today. It was really sort of insightful because some of these interviews I've done, you know, a lot's happened since then. You know, like the first ones that I filmed were like a few weeks ago now, so it's, you know, it's difficult to sort of remember everything all at once. So when I've listened back to everything, I now have a good idea of all the things that I have, all the material that I have got to my disposal for editing the rest of the product out. And I think that'll be just easy for me to then be able to stick all the footage where it needs to be and locate footage. And, you know, when I'm looking for the good answers to questions, you know, I'll have a question of like, oh, what are your best experiences with patients or something like that. And now just from watching that back, I can remember all the people that did a really good response to that question, so I'll be able to locate that answer to that question very, very easily and drag and drop that into my product. So yeah, all in all, a really positive start. I had 7 different interviews and all 7 of them are now in little sections. I think the only thing that didn't go as well is the first few interviews that I sort of cut down ended up a lot bigger than what I would have liked. I wanted to keep everything like, you know, down to like a few minutes, and some even at 5 minutes, you know, it's an achievement when you think that these interviews were 45 minutes long and I've cut them down to 5 minutes. But 5 minutes is still a lot of running time for a product that's only set to be 20 minutes in total. So I just think with that all being considered, I would have liked to be able to cut these down further. But I feel like when I go into the product, I will just be able to take out a lot more things. It'd save a lot more time if I'd have been able to done that right from the get-go. The shorter things are, the less I have to keep rewatching and making sure that I don't need that bit, or what's going on with that specific section of work. So if I were to go back and redo it again, I'd try and be a bit more critical with the things that I was keeping and think, do I really need this? You know, is this really something that I should keep in this product? Because, you know, a lot of things are probably going to look back and think, I didn't need to keep this. So yeah, I definitely changed that, but really, really strong start, lots of really fine edits, and being able to match every question up perfectly to the shots that I've got, the questions that I've got, and it flows really well in with the script. I can now start matching the script up with the questions, and so we've got as foundation, I've got all my interviews edited. Now my next goal is to start to lay the opening section out, because the opening section doesn't involve interviews from the NHS workers. That's got my vox pops, which I haven't looked at yet. That's got, you know, some on-screen journalism shots and a lot of stock footage, just to like introduce things in a really professional way with the voiceovers and music, and you know, like I'm gonna have a little on-screen graphic that's like sensitive content warning, and that foundation's just going to introduce all the interviews in a really nice way before the opening title scene comes on. I'm really excited to make that product, and that is where I'll be going from here, is starting to lay that foundation for inserting all the footage that I've done today, so it can follow on from that, and I can start and jumble bits in together so that each question is answered with multiple different interviews. Being able to have all these fine edits now means that I don't have to I don't have to edit any of my footage later on. They can all drag and drop straight in, and no more fine editing needs to be done with the really, really long footage. So it's a big weight off your shoulders, you know, knowing that all the sort of the really, really big task is over and done with when it comes to editing, and now it's just hopefully going to be smooth sailing, getting everything in together, putting all the layers up, you know, sort of then moving into fine edits. So next session, going to be moving into laying the opening scene up to the sort of the title credits, just so I can then, the session after that, move on to putting in the footage that I've edited today into the sequencing. So lovely strong start. Hopefully everything carries on like this tomorrow. This is a second edited production log video. So I have previously edited together all of my, well, not exactly edited together, but edited down all my interviews so that I was ready to start making sort of the foundation, the opening for my product. So that's what I've been working on today. I finished all of my editing of all my like really long sections. So today it was just about making sort of a really solid opening so that I can start incorporating the work that I did yesterday into the product. So to begin with, I really enjoyed, made an on-screen graphic to begin with. I didn't use Photoshop or anything fancy, just because it was just, I'm not very confident with Photoshop. I just had to use Word, did a few screen clippings. It just says warning, viewer discretion advised, you know, sensitive content. It looks really professional. I even managed to locate the effects. It was advised in my market research not to include too many effects and transitions, just because it makes the product look really over edited and really unprofessional. But I just put those at the beginning and the end of the on-screen graphic that starts off the product, because that's something that appears before. It's part of the product, but it's not really, it's just an additional thing. So for it to fade on and off really nice, like really quickly, it means that it's not like in your face, but you think, oh wow, you know, that's a nice little thing to have included to make it at a professional level. I think definitely the strongest thing today was when I first started editing this section, I chose in the filler shots that I've collected, and I put them in the order that I wanted for like how we're going to set the scene. Got a nice city time lapse, so it turned into day, to like, you know, like to begin the episode, beginning to get today, you know, sort of like not really foreshadowing, but you know, like it's a representation of the thing starting, the day starting, the
start the product. Thought that were a really nice opening, and then just start with some, you know, like some clouds and various other little shots that just really set the scene. I would have liked to have been able to have got all my own footage, but the stock footage just works really well. It doesn't look cheesy, it doesn't look, you know, like it's not supposed to be there. It does look like it serves a purpose, and I've not been able to get any filler shots really, because all the filming that I've done is been in my garden, you know, it's been in other people's gardens, it's been outside, and there's not a lot of opportunities for filler shots when you've got no permissions, you've got to work under restrictions, and it's just helpful sometimes to use stuff that is other people's. And it's not all bad, because, you know, this time last year I had to completely scrap my idea of making a video product, and I turned it just into complete audio because I couldn't get the footage that I needed. This year we're still in the same situation, still were denied all permissions to go filming on hospitals, so using the filler shots that are already in the hospitals still gives you the visual effect. I can still show off my on-screen skills, I can still show off my the interviews that I've conducted, the way I've laid them out all looks really nice, and people will still be able to see the effort that I've put into going out and doing filming and trying the filming, even if the product isn't, you know, completely all the footage that I've been able to collect. It's not my fault, it's not my fault that we've got these laws at the minute. I feel like it's a really good way of showing that instead of just giving up, I've learned from last year and I've put it into practice this year how I'm going to make sure that everything fits in really nice, and I can still demonstrate as many skills as possible. I can still try and make the documentary, and I can still include as much footage of my own as what was possible for me to collect. So when I first put the filler shots in, you know, they were nice filler shots and all, but I put the music underneath them and it just wasn't working, and I couldn't figure out why. I was trying to figure out how do I make this look professional when it's just not sitting right together, and that's when I don't really know what occurred to me, but every time the music's like a piano that I chose for like the opening to set the scene, it's like a dun dun, dun, and every time sort of the piano sort of like strikes, it fades. Every time it strikes, that's when I chose to cut the scene. So the cut the scene is on the beat of the music, and that's something that I've not been able to do before, is incorporate the music in so that it actually is relevant to the filler shots. I've really been trying to make a big effort with the music and making sure it's effective and that it does serve a purpose, just because this was the feedback that I've had before is, you know, music, you know, it needs to have a purpose. So I've been trying really hard to make sure that I can achieve that goal of mine to make the music really effective, and it's going well so far. It's really satisfying to watch. It cuts so nicely, and so yeah, we've got a really solid opening. Edited all the vox pops into there, some really lovely sort of layouts. I would have liked. I've got two younger people, someone in 20s, someone really old. You know, I would have liked one of the really younger people to be older, you know, so I got more differentiation with my vox pops, but there wasn't too. Everyone said no, nobody wanted to talk to me, so the younger people were a lot more willing, so that's why I've not been able to get so much differentiation with the vox pops, but it's alright, you know. They still work really well. They're all going in before my opening credits, you know, they're all being introduced before the staff. I've made my opening sort of scene today. I just use I used Word again, getting the text in the middle, screen clipping it, switching it over to my phone. I then was able to do the editing through the iPhone software, which is just so much more straightforward. Putting on a coloured background, turning it into like a more of a bluish shade, you know, sort of like not really NHS blue because it's a lot paler, but blue tones just sort of represents the NHS, with a really nice NHS Heroes behind the mask. It's got my logo on, it flicks from my logo to my sort of title screen. My goal for next time is we're at this point now where I've got the title screen and not much more after that, but the title screen, it doesn't blend in well in the middle, it doesn't transfer very well from saying the logo to saying what the title of the product is. I want to be able to blend it in so it's sort of like fades in better together. At the minute it just sort of cuts in between the other one, and it does look very staged. It's not very professional. The reason why it's not at the level it should be with that opening is because I did ask someone to help me to make, I sent him my logos and, he makes on-screen graphics, if he could make me like an opening sort of scene, and he wasn't able to do that just yet because I don't know, he's not really got, he said that he was going to try and do that for me, but he's not got back to me since. I've been trying to get in contact and see if he's going to make this on-screen graphic, but I don't think I'm going to get one of those, so that's why I just need to make sure that I have got something in there to make sure that, if he doesn't send me something back, I will have an opening, an opening title sequence, even if it's not great. So I'm going to get some advice, some people that do editing, and see how I can make the two images blend together more well in the middle, so it looks like more of a video clip rather than two images. They're just fading in and out of each other. So yeah, positives. The music cuts in really well with the beginning of each scene. It all slides in really well together. It's perfect. The voiceovers are in there. They work well, they sound well, they're a nice volume level, so that's a really nice thing. They do sound, maybe it's just listening to your own voice, I can't hear myself as a professional presenter. I can just hear my voice speaking rather than, oh, that's an introduction to a documentary. But I think there's not really much I can do about that. I recorded the voiceover so many times to get it sounding how I wanted. Especially today when I made my opening sequence, I spent a lot of time redoing my voiceover, listening to the opening sequence and watching the filler shots and trying to make the audio line up with the filler shots individually. And it sort of worked. It did work, but I still just hear my voice. I don't hear a documentary introduction. But I think that is just what comes with you watching your own product back, and the importance of getting someone else to watch your own product back. A nice solid opening, vox pops in there, an on-screen sort of introduction from me on the on-screen journalism side. We've got the logo in there and the titling screen ready to move into the vox pops. So now I've just got another little section to do just with me, doing some voiceover work, and then we can move into just editing in all the interviews together and start piecing together with the filler shots that I've got for interviews. Over the top of those, hopefully majority of the stock footage sequences are out the way now, because it is the opening that's just something that you don't really have. You don't have all the footage for stuff like that because there's no opportunities. But goals for tomorrow, try and fix that on-screen graphic, move on to starting to putting in more of my on-screen journalism scenes, and moving into piecing together the first interviews and the next bit of the sequencing. Positive start. You just got to keep going and keep trying to make sure things don't seem unprofessional. Hi and welcome to my third editing production log video. I have to say I'm starting to get increasingly more frustrated with this process. To begin with, when I first started piecing the product together, I tried making like a fully editing section by section, and it was really frustrating looking at the same footage over and over and over again for such a long duration of time. And I only really got to like the first, the first couple of minutes fully edited with all the shots in, all the music, all the relevant transitions, etc. And it just wasn't a way that was working for me, and it was taking far too long to feel like I'd made very little progress and to still be looking at the same scene. So for the past few days I've been taking sort of the approach of making a skeleton, if that makes sense. It's taken a very long time. The editing process, I didn't think it was going to be quite this complicated, and I thought, a few days it'll be over and done with. Very wrong. I was very wrong. So what I've been doing basically is working on making the product just go from interview to interview to interview with the filler shots in between,
of me doing the on-screen journalism sections, and not really much else. You know, I'm not putting in music yet, I'm not putting in transitions yet, I'm not doing the filler shots because it's just, I want to see an outline as to where this product is going. I feel like if I put all the transitions in and something doesn't work, if I've not got the real main body, it's going to be very detrimental to the product. I don't want to have edited it all and then watch through it all and realise, actually those sections don't join together well. I've edited all those transitions in and, you know, I'm going to have to take it out, move it somewhere else, put something else in, you know, things like that. So yeah, from the section that I entered yesterday, my work now looks like this. It's all the different edited sections of what people were saying to answer the questions, all of their interviews, all that are all finely edited into different things. All those clips that I've made are now dragged and dropped into little pieces. They're all sort of one after the other, with the question that's been asked, the questions answering it, no, the filler shots answering it, the B-roll, sorry, and then it goes one after the other, after the other, after the other, all the way to the very last bit of the product. What I did notice was, I feel like a few things have been repeated. Some of the questions were very similar, some of the answers were very similar. A lot of the content, I thought, do we actually need this, or is there something that is more important to have covered in this topic? So from what the script looked like, I intentionally made sure that I had a lot more sort of content, a lot more facts, a lot more join shots to begin with than what I actually needed. And so I've got a few shots now that are just of me filming, presenting shots that I didn't actually end up using, but it's all fine, because now we can see the end goal, and that makes me feel a lot more confident with the way this product is going. Because I didn't realise quite how hard it was to locate everything on this software. I'm very good at cutting things up precisely, and to begin with, when that was all I had to do, I was like, oh, this is easy, I'm very good at editing, because I can do the precision. What I don't know is my way around the software, and that's showing more increasingly as I go through this project. When I was looking for, say, you know, how to add in a transition, I didn't know what the transitions were, which transitions to use, where to find an appropriate transition for what I wanted to do. And it's little things like that that make the difference between a high quality product and a low quality product. But I'm just asking a lot of questions as I go along, making sure I've got people around me that know what they're doing, that can advise me on different things. I feel like, looking back, I should have done more primary research into how to use the editing software, because it's all well and good having to play around, but there's a lot more steps to it when you're actually doing the real product than what you're just looking from the software, you know, what you see. There's a lot more than meets the eye, and that has shown a lot, basically. But I feel like I'm in a much better state moving forward to actually start doing the fine editing, because I can see which bits have been included. I can completely scrap all of the interview sections that I've edited down and not used, which is quite a lot. The product, with everything in it, all of the interviews, is around 20 minutes. It's going to be 20 minutes in length, so that's sort of a good thing, because my market research told me that people look for a shorter product, and shorter products usually have a bigger impact, a better meaning, and don't bore people. So it's better that my product is towards the shorter side of the duration of time that I said it was going to be. I said I wanted a 20 to 30 minute documentary, so with it being 20 minutes, it is what it's supposed to be, but it's at the shorter end, which adheres to my market research feedback, to show that it's going to be a shorter, snappy product that'll be much more effective than what maybe a longer product would have been. And to have cut the sections out on my script that weren't as good as what other ones were is a very positive thing to have done, to make sure that I'm not waffling on just to say to get the clocking time up. I feel like that's something I do very often, is thinking that bigger is better. The more time you've spent doing something, the longer the piece of writing is, the better it's going to be. The longer the product is, the better it is. It's not. That's not what it is. And I feel like I've really got out of the mindset from doing that market research, and I've shown the development that I have been listening to what I've been told and what people have been informing me with. It is all feeling very rough,
because there are no edits in it, there is no music, it's very boring. You know, watching it is very boring, and I'm able to admit that. But I'm hoping that's just because what you don't realise with documentaries is this how they start out, and it's all the fine edits that do make the product into what it is. So now I just need to really go focus and ask lots of questions with the fine editing, figure out how to do the things that I can't do. The biggest issue I had is while getting towards the end of my product, all the documents I had open on my computer all of a sudden froze, and I don't know why that happened. Every Word document that I had open, you know, the internet, including Premiere Pro, crashed. Nothing would respond, and that meant that I lost everything that I'd not saved up to that point. On every document that did crash, which luckily wasn't as much for the written documents as what it was last time something like this happened during this project, which is not really a positive, but a positive in a way. But I did lose a bit of my product, and I had to spend a lot of time waiting around for the product to start responding. I couldn't get the product off, we couldn't get it to close down safely, we couldn't just yank the memory stick out for fear of it, you know, losing all the memory altogether. And it'd be such a shame to get this far and then to have to start all over again, because we are nearing very near now to the deadline when this is all supposed to be getting finalised, sorted. You know, we're supposed to be moving into the evaluating stages and getting all these on air and published. So we need to sort of make sure that there's no more really major setbacks, because any major setbacks are going to be very, very detrimental to this product, with the time that we have got left to do all these fine edits and with the limited knowledge that I have. So positives is that we have a skeleton now and a clear outline as to where we're going with the product. We've got rid of all the bits that we don't need, and it's feeling a lot cleaner. It's feeling a lot less like a huge task now, because I spent so much time trying to get in the bits that I needed and make sure that they answered the questions, that the questions were relevant to be in this place that they were put in on the product. Sequencing it was a very difficult thing to make sure that it were going to be a very good product, but I've managed to overcome all those things through watching it back lots of times, through showing it to people and saying, do you think this sounds good, which bit do you think should be in that? And people have been very informative in telling me, yeah, that works there, yeah, I didn't know that, so that's something that a lot of people might be able to learn from. You should definitely keep that bit in, and vice versa. But moving forwards, the targets are for fine edits, and for future projects I really do just need to know how to locate things better. I can see myself finding things more familiarly as I'm going along, but it's, you know, I've still clearly got a long way to go with using this software, and that's why this project was a challenge to me, because I knew that I didn't have these skills and that they were going to be things that I were going to have to develop through these stages, and it is challenging, but I'm determined to get through it, and I'm determined to make this product really successful. And in the last production log, I'll be able to show you, you know, I'll be able to tell you that it all went fine and everything did work out, and that I managed to learn the software more and get all the fine edits done very professionally. Hello and welcome to what is, unfortunately but not so unfortunately, my last production log video. At this stage, very positive. We've got a final edited product that I am so proud of I could cry. It's been so hard. Yeah, it's been so hard to actually get to this position that I'm in now. It's almost overwhelming, the nerves and the anxiety that I've felt to actually get to this stage, because doing the fine editing of these past few days has been so frustrating. It's been incredibly, you know, torturous even, because I am not in my comfort zone with this, not at all, and it's actually, I'm feeling emotional to have got it done and to be able to say the product's finished. The only thing I need to do now is export the video, because I don't know how to do that. So we're going to get some help with that, and then it's going to be put onto YouTube. That's the next stage for this product. It's going to be then put onto Spotify, hopefully, if I figure out how to do that. Definitely SoundCloud as an audio product. I was aiming for this product to go on to a
to submit it to a local TV station. However, I don't think this is a very appropriate thing to do because I'd had to use a lot of stock footage, which I didn't aim to do originally, but I did think this was a much better option than just making an audio product like I had to last year, because I couldn't get all the footage that I needed because of the coronavirus and restrictions that have been in place while we've been trying to piece everything together. So I don't think it's, you know, I don't want everyone to just think she's someone that just uses stock footage, she's someone that just can't really try. This product is really going to just be for me, my grade, the people that have been involved with it, and just to show people that I actually could go above and beyond and still film something, including as much of my own content as what was possible, all my own research, just with some help with someone else's filler shots to make sure everything flowed in neatly and that the interviews weren't just block interviews and nothing else. I thought that was a really important thing to be able to do. A lot of other people have completely made their footage, their, you know, products with so much stock footage. So I'm not the only one in this position, so I'm feeling still very confident. The product is very good. The only thing that I'm not very happy with is the fact that I wanted to make rolling credits at the end. I wrote down a list of all the people's stock footage that I used, just to sort of credit them at the end, and everyone that helped me do bits of filming along the way, people that held the camera while I did my on-screen journalism shots and walked forwards with them, you know, so moving the camera for me so I could do the sweeping walking shots and things like that. I had that list of names ready to go to create the credits, and I did try and create the credits, but it was just, I couldn't find one that rolled, didn't know how to do it, and I ended up giving up because it's not something that's important to the product. It was just like an extra additive. I wanted to seem higher level, but it wasn't a higher level technique that I was able to achieve. So that's just something that I'm going to have to work on and learn how to improve for next time I edit a product, is to be able to include credits at the end, just to make it seem like a professionally made thing. It still had the professional open, it still had the professional graphics. I inserted my logo onto the corner, which was a very nice touch. With the Now Today news that I created myself, I made my own sort of title screen. Unfortunately, I asked one of my acquaintances to make. He does like sort of editing, sort of design work, and he makes animated logos, you know, for when I watched my similar products during my research process. They had a logo that moved and switched between a few images and then turned into the title, and I wanted something similar to that to sort of brand my product and to introduce it after I'd done my introduction sort of section. Instead, I had to make my own, and I did this using iMovie and some footage and some images that I created myself using Word, editing, changing the shading and things like that, just to make sure that I actually had still had some sort of decent quality intro with music behind it, because otherwise I just wouldn't have had one at all, because I don't know how to do things like that. It's just beyond my ability with editing software, because I can't do graphic design. It's not a graphic design course, it's a journalism course. I'm meant to be, you know, in front of the camera saying things, and I've been able to show those skills and so much more with doing this editing work. So that's a really positive thing. Added in transitions became a lot easier for me. Now I know where all the transitions are. There's a few transitions that I still don't know where to locate, and that's stabilising shots. I looked ages for a stabilising shot function on some of the shots, but Adam showed me a technique where if you press the rendering button, it stabilises the shot for you anyway pretty easily. So I've just been rendering the product and making sure that the shots stabilise on their own, but it still would be better if I knew where to find the actual the video effect that allowed me to stabilise individual shots in case I didn't want to render the entire product. So that's something I'm going to have to learn, an improvement that I want to make for myself. From just how familiar that I am with the project now, I'm really confident. I'm really happy that I've got to the stage that I am, and that everything flows just really nicely. All the shots, you know, there's no sharp bit, there's no bits that just cut too quickly that I don't think, and it's really long as well. I've never taken on a challenge in this way, because I've never made a product that's more than a few minutes in length.
I've edited a few minutes at a time and thought, this is easy, I can get it done quickly. But when actually it's 10 times the amount of a 2-minute product, it's a lot, it's a lot more demanding. There's a lot more skills that need to go in there. You have the opportunity to do a lot more things with it because you've got such a longer duration of time. It's not a 2-minute audio news report, many times over. It's an individual product on its own with lots of higher level techniques, including doing vox pops and interviews, using a title sequence. That's not something you do in a 2-minute, sort of product. And it's all things that you don't think about until you're actually put in the position where you've got to do it. And it's something that I wasn't prepared for. I needed to have been more prepared for this editing than what I were, otherwise I wouldn't have struggled so much, especially with when things pop up saying error, cannot locate these images. That's an interesting point to mention, is that the historical footage that I found and inserted into my product was working all well and good and fine when I first put it in, and now it didn't work. I don't know how to describe that it didn't work, but it was videos of hospitals and nursing staff in black and white, and instead it was the text from previously in the YouTube video that I MP4 transferred it to, with just like nurses treating patients, the captions that they used to have in our videos, and it was just still images of crackly captions that weren't part of what I had edited in, and both of them were the same. I tried re-importing the product, I tried re-saving the product, re-converting it using a different MP4 converter, trying to solve the situation and address the problem. Unfortunately, none of these contingency plans worked. I had to just scrap it. I couldn't get any other MP4 convertible footage off of YouTube that included historical footage that wasn't clearly copyrighted by other people. If I include copyrighted footage, I would not be able to upload the product to YouTube, which is not something that I want to have to face, because I want to be able to send a YouTube link out to people. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is, what I have done, is I have chosen 5 images from old hospitals instead, things that aren't copyrighted, and I've just made a quick, 5 images that cover up the space of these 2 short videos instead, so there's more to look at, the things that aren't going to be copyrighted, and the things that work, most importantly. They're not things that are going to corrupt. Corrupting videos is very frustrating because you have to re-import it and sort it out, trying to get to the bottom of why this footage is corrupting. I think one of the biggest problems I had before is not saving all the files to the same place. And with this project, I've really shown initiative, and I've organised all my files really well and made sure that all of the music, images, filler shots, interviews are all in the same folder, so that it can easily locate the files that I've used in this product, because otherwise a lot of the files would have corrupted, and I've not ended up in a position where many of my files have corrupted at this stage. So that's a really beneficial thing to be able to say, is that I've been able to work on an issue that I've had many times before, and it's not going to happen again. Filler shots are really difficult to sort of put in and make work with the footage, and I still think that there are some instances where the filler shots aren't completely appropriate to the footage, but there was just no other opportunities, and I needed something there. I wouldn't have liked something to be there, but I can't have interview clips moving from one thing to the other. I needed to have individual things. I needed to have one individual interview that didn't look like it had snippets through it where bits had been taken out, so I had to put filler shots in places where I didn't necessarily want to put them and where things didn't necessarily work. But all in terms of on-screen graphics, they all look really good. They all really professional. They transition in and out. It all flows. There's so many professional aspects that I didn't realise that I could achieve on my own, and I've managed to achieve it all on my own. So it's been a very difficult journey to create it, but it has paid off, and I have got a really successful product that now is ready to be exported. And once it's exported, that's it. I get to build the website and just relax and write my evaluation and everything that I've done, reflection, and this is the end of all the production logs finished as well. So the end of college is near.
and I'm going to cry. So, solid product, solid win for the team, and time to go to an evaluation.